Chapter 161, To be suppressed for 100 years. Xuanhuang's eyes widened as he looked at Lin Jiufeng. He was using the remainder of his strength to look at Lin Jiufeng. He wanted to know why. As a Taoist priest, he was highly regarded. In addition, he contributed a lot in the previous era to maintain the equilibrium of the heavenly Tao. But despite his past feats, he actually lost to someone from the secular world. Yes. In Xuanhuang's eyes, he was already the guardian and the propagator of the great Tao. He wasn't a mortal. He was high and mighty, the executor on behalf of the heavens. The world should look up to him, respect him, and worship him. But he died in Lin Jiufeng's hands with one strike. He had no ability to resist at all. No, it was more accurate to say that he couldn't resist at all. Lin Jiufeng's sword had shown him a brand new world. A brand new heavenly Tao, a heavenly Tao that Lin Jiufeng comprehended himself. In the end, he could only agree to Lin Jiufeng's words. I know the heavens better than you. Xuanhuang fell indignantly. His consciousness started to dissipate. His eyes were lifeless and his breathing stopped. His existence was extinguished. Death. There were only a handful of people at the summit of Mount Primordial Chaos. In total, there were only 4 people. 3 uncle masters and Taoist priest Xuanhuang. Upon witnessing Taoist priest Xuanhuang's death, the remaining 3 were outraged. These 3 people would never have imagined that the invincible Xuanhuang of the previous era would directly die in his first battle of this brand new era. How dare you? An old man raged. His aura, which had been silent all this time, erupted similar to a boiling volcano. Rumble. The aura transformed into a black dragon that bared its fangs and brandished its claws. It roared ferociously. The sight of it alone was mind-numbing. The aura of this uncle master was stronger than Xuanhuang's. He had at least crossed 5 or 6 steps in the boundless realm. He was even stronger than Lin Jiufeng. But Lin Jiufeng wasn't afraid of him at all. He opened his palm and true qi erupted. A sword case appeared beside him. Dong! The sword case let out a dull sound. There were many swords nurtured in it, and they had become even more powerful in the past few decades. If you transform into a dragon, I shall slay the dragon. If you transform into a phoenix, I shall slaughter the phoenix. Lin Jiufeng's eyes were cold. He stood before the mountain gates of the primordial chaos Tao sect. A domineering aura surrounded his body. He slapped the sword case open and a sword flew out. Demon-slaying sword. This was Lin Jiufeng's very first sword. He received it after signing in at the land of extreme negative energy in the cold palace of the Unrivalled God Dynasty. Lin Jiufeng had pulled it out once more and pointed it at the sky. He held the sword with both hands and leaned forward. He faced the black dragon and took a step. 100 feet away in the air, a sword energy descended. It was born from Lin Jiufeng's move. The move was none other than the ultimate heaven-slashing sword skill. Like the demon-slaying sword, it was the very first sword technique that Lin Jiufeng received from signing in. Together with his first treasured sword, Lin Jiufeng executed a powerful move. Rumble. The black dragon, which represented the amalgamation of the old man's aura, was directly cut into pieces. Waves surged in the air, tearing apart the clouds above the mountains. But no one noticed this phenomenon. Lin Jiufeng remained steadfast before Xuanhuang's uncle master. With a sword in hand, Lin Jiufeng pointed in a direction and sneered. The higher-ups behind the scenes of the primordial chaos Tao sect, you guys may be very strong, but from the moment you guys ordered Xuanhuang to attack yet didn't help him when he was killed, I knew that you guys hadn't completely escaped from your seals. The powerhouses behind the primordial chaos Tao sect. You lot may be very strong, but from the moment you lot ordered Xuanhuang to attack, you never helped him even until he died. I wasn't sure about it earlier, but now I am completely certain. You lot haven't completely escaped from your seals just yet. The stronger a person was when they sealed themselves, the harder it would be for them to escape from their seals. After all, their seals would remain as strong as it was since it was created, but the creator's strength would undoubtedly be affected by the passage of time. Taoist priest Daoyi made his escape. Xuanhuang died. But his 3 uncle masters remained in place. This only meant one thing: they were still trapped in the place where they sealed themselves many years ago. Their most powerful technique in today's time was to gather their auras into one and use it to directly smash people into pancakes. Ordinary people would definitely be scared witless upon being exposed under such a powerful aura. But Lin Jiufeng was different. With a sword in hand, he destroyed the Black Dragon. And then, he gave the 3 uncle masters of the primordial chaos Dao sect a surprise. The surprise made them gnash their teeth in hatred, but they were helpless to do anything about it. Dong dong dong. The void trembled. One of them was a person with an explosive temper. He wanted to forcefully break through the seal and come out to kill Lin Jiufeng. Even if he had to pay a huge price to forcefully come into being, he still wanted to give it a try. Ka! 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 Cracks appeared in the air like mirrors. The void itself was about to split open. This uncle master wanted to squeeze himself out of the seal and kill Lin Jiufeng for revenge. But would Lin Jiufeng give him that chance to do so? Since you lot are still there, then I shall let you stay there for longer. Lin Jiufeng coldly snorted. He reached out and formed a seal. Runic imprints flew out and stuck to the cracked void. Boom! 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 The cracked void was instantly repaired. The uncle master inside roared. Let me out! I will cut you into pieces. How cowardly of you to not let us out! Are you afraid of us? Lin Jiufeng's hands moved non-stop as he constantly formed seals to repair the void. Even though Lin Jiufeng was busy, he still responded to their taunts mockingly. I'm different from you lot. I defeated Xuanhuang openly, unlike you lot that likes to hide in the dark and stay away from everyone. Since you lot like solitude that much, I shall fulfill your wishes. Don't think about coming out anytime soon. From today onwards, the primordial chaos Dao sect shall be sealed in this mountain. You 3 old farts are not allowed to come out for 100 years. Lin Jiufeng firmly declared. As soon as his words fell, the 3 uncle masters exploded in fury. 100 years? It will be too late by then. You want to seal us for 100 years? Don't even think about it. I can seal myself for a few thousand years, but I definitely won't accept being sealed by you for 100 years. The 3 uncle masters, both male and female included, instantly exploded upon hearing Lin Jiufeng's words. They definitely couldn't accept such a thing. Especially that they were going to be sealed by Lin Jiufeng, someone from that secular dynasty. This was an extreme humiliation. Shut it! You lot can't even escape from your seals and you still want to go against me? Lin Jiufeng coldly shouted. His aura surged to its peak as he decisively inserted the demon-slaying sword into the primordial chaos Dao sect's mountain peak. Rumble! The demon-slaying sword became buried in the summit and it immediately mobilized every array formation imprint that Lin Jiufeng had just created. The many array formation imprints then coalesced into a single gigantic array formation that froze the surrounding void. No! Damn it, a sealing array formation. Break it! I cannot be sealed for another 100 years. The golden age of this brand new era had just started. I cannot stay here and miss it. The 3 simply went crazy. They struggled with all their might as they frantically stirred turbulent spatial fluctuations to disturb the equilibrium of the array formation. But their efforts were in vain, for they were unable to tear the void apart to physically disturb the formation. With the demon-slaying sword serving as the foundation of the array formation that was suppressing them in the void, they were simply unable to break through the array formation. It would probably remain true for 100 more years unless there was external interference. The 3 of them tried their best to break free, but they eventually became disheartened. They truly wanted to curse out loud at this moment. Scold me once and I'll add another 10 years. Insults are also welcome. Lin Jiufeng calmly stated. Silence. Apart from the whistling of the wind and the swaying of the leaves, no other noises could be heard at the summit of Mount Primordial Chaos where the Primordial Chaos Dao sect was being sealed. Lin Jiufeng and the White Cat looked at each other. Lin Jiufeng smiled gently and retracted his domain and phenomenon. He heaved a sigh of relief. I must become even stronger. I barely managed to suppress this primordial chaos Dao sect. Lin Jiufeng thought. He basically used 80 to 90% of his strength to kill Xuanhuang and suppress the three uncle masters of the primordial chaos Dao sect. Considering the percentage, Lin Jiufeng felt that he was still too weak. Do you want to sign in at the primordial chaos Dao sect? All of a sudden, a line of words appeared before his eyes. Lin Jiufeng's eyes lit up. Chapter 162, Traveling the World. Should he sign in at the primordial chaos Dao sect? He definitely had to sign in. Lin Jiufeng agreed without hesitation. Sign in successful. Received great Dao descending into the mortal realm phenomenon. Lin Jiufeng was surprised to find out that it was actually the same type of phenomenon as the sea rising bright moon. It was a rare phenomenon belonging to the Taoist sects. When activated, a manifestation of the great Dao would descend into the mortal realm to crush the opponent. The great Dao descending into the mortal realm was similar to the sea rising bright moon. It was a domain phenomenon that the average cultivators would never be able to comprehend in their entire lives. But right now, Lin Jiufeng has two domains of this type in his arsenal. Merge with God's domain. Lin Jiufeng said decisively as he absorbed the phenomenon into his body. Rumble. The great Dao descending into the mortal realm that he had just received from signing in was now perfectly integrated with his God's domain. Similar to the sea rising bright moon, it manifested into a star that brightly hung in the world of God's domain. Whenever Lin Jiufeng wanted to, he could activate the phenomenon at any time. But if it was unnecessary, he could simply only use God's domain without activating the great Dao descending into the mortal realm. When the great Dao descending into the mortal realm phenomenon fused with Lin Jiufeng's domain, the powerful energy that it brought with its manifestation directly poured into his body. Rumble. Lin Jiufeng immediately took a few steps across the boundless realm and climbed even higher. Of course, this commotion happened within Lin Jiufeng's body. The outside world remained as calm as a serene lake, but his body was in an uproar. There were no signs or any strange fluctuations at all. When he reached the seventh step of the boundless realm, the boiling energy in his body slowly calmed down. He reached out and hugged the white cat into his arms. He did not even look at the sealed mountain peak of the primordial chaos Dao sect. From today onwards, the primordial chaos Dao sect will seal themselves in Mount Primordial Chaos for 100 years. If this rule is violated at any length of stay other than an entire 100 years, the primordial chaos Dao sect shall be annihilated. Lin Jiufeng turned around and left. He did not stop to look at anything at all. He only left a sentence behind him. The three uncle masters of the primordial chaos Dao sect struggled with all their might. They were furious and indignant. But in the end, their struggles turned into helpless sighs. They couldn't defeat Lin Jiufeng. Taoist Xuanhuang died in his hands. Considering this, Taoist priest Dawi, who was about to return from his expedition outside, was even less of a match for him. The primordial chaos Dao sect could only seal themselves in Mount Primordial Chaos. No one knew about the terrifying battle that had recently concluded in Mount Primordial Chaos. The commotion that it caused above the clouds didn't spread throughout the world. Mount Primordial Chaos remained seemingly untouched. But if one looked closely, one would find an additional sword inserted into the summit of Mount Primordial Chaos. The sword looked lonely, but it was powerful enough to suppress the higher-ups of the Primordial Chaos Dao sect. When Taoist priest Dawi returned, what greeted him was a corpse in the suppressed Primordial Chao Dao sect. Taoist priest Dawi looked at the demon-slaying sword inserted at the very summit of Mount Primordial Chaos. He felt powerless by simply looking at it. He could only indignantly announce to the world that the entire Primordial Chaos Dao sect was going to seal themselves for 100 years. Just as everyone in the world was looking forward to Taoist priest Dawi's return to his sect and what the higher-ups of the Primordial Chaos Dao sect would do in response to the Unrivalled God Dynasty's blatant act of provocation. A piece of news spread throughout the world. Its contents thoroughly dumbfounded the people of the world. The Primordial Chaos Dao sect was going to seal themselves for 100 years? When the news spread, the entire world was thrown into an uproar. Then, confusion followed suit. What was going on? Taoist priest Daohui only failed to assassinate Emperor Di because a powerhouse protected the Yuhua God dynasty. Everyone acknowledged Monk Fusan's might and felt that facing Monk Fusan shouldn't be a problem that Taoist priest Daohui must handle. Moreover, Monk Fusan was currently in a weakened state. Anyone with discerning eyes could see that he was seriously injured. He barely managed to defeat Taoist priest Daohui. Thus, it would be impossible for him to deal with the other powerhouses of the primordial Chaos Dao sect. But despite all of these, the primordial Chaos Dao sect didn't seek revenge. Instead, they sealed themselves and endured the shame. What exactly happened to the primordial Chaos Dao sect? At this moment, countless powerhouses from the various large factions and major forces tried to contact the primordial Chaos Dao sect. They wanted to ask why they chose to seal themselves despite their glaring advantage against the Yuhua God dynasty. But the primordial Chaos Dao sect never answered. They had truly sealed themselves within the confines of Mount Primordial Chaos. They had no intention of making contact with the outside world at all. The many disciples of the Primordial Chaos Dao sect didn't leave Mount Primordial Chaos either. Everyone in the world started discussing the rationale behind the bizarre actions of the Primordial Chaos Dao sect. There were all sorts of guesses, including the Yuhua God dynasty sending an even more powerful powerhouse to suppress the Primordial Chaos Dao sect. Some people started spreading this rumor, but not many people believed it. Because they felt that no one in the Yuhua God dynasty could continuously suppress the Primordial Chaos Dao sect for 100 years. When Emperor Di received the news, he was also confused. He quickly called Princess Yulin over and discussed the matter with her. After Princess Yulin heard of the news, both siblings stared at each other. She was also baffled. Why did they seal themselves? Princess Yulin asked quizzically. Are they scared of our Yuhua God dynasty? Princess Yulin guessed. That's impossible. If they were truly afraid of our Yuhua God dynasty, they wouldn't have sent Daohui to come here assassinate me with such great fanfare in the first place. Emperor Di shook his head. It also wasn't the first time that the Primordial Chaos Dao sect assassinated emperors who cultivated the Dao. If their policy was to seal themselves after every assassination attempt, they would have also done it in the previous era. Then why? Princess Yulin asked. Emperor Di's gaze sharpened as he made a guess. Maybe because Big Granduncle visited the Primordial Chaos Dao sect? Princess Yulin's eyes lit up. That's possible. You also think that it's possible, right? Emperor Di was excited. Well, this theory makes more sense than the wild guesses of the many people in the world out there. Also, if we consider the advantage that the other party has over us, only a truly terrifying existence can force them to seal themselves. Other than this, I can't think of any other reason why they would do such a thing. Princess Yulin analyzed. Since we both think the same, I should probably continue to expand the Yuhua God dynasty's influence and power. This time, I'll do it on an even larger scale than before. I'll also do my best to nurture our Yuhua God dynasty's golden dragon of destiny. After all, we can't just continuously rely on Big Granduncle's help. Emperor Di solemnly responded. Princess Yulin agreed with Emperor Di's decision. The Yuhua God dynasty could treat Big Granduncle as their trump card, but they couldn't rely on him all the time. It would be best if they didn't have to use this trump card for the rest of their lives. During this period of time, every major force and faction in the world have become restless, including some of those underground factions that are constantly harassing our people. Leave them to me, I will handle them well. Princess Yulin proposed. Yup, you go and handle it then. Also, I want you to pay more attention to the Taoist and demon sects. They seem to be about to erupt into a fight against each other, Emperor Di said. Are they fighting? Princess Yulin looked at Emperor Di in surprise. Well, they've always been fighting since time immemorial. There have been a few skirmishes between them recently. If it wasn't for the Primordial Chaos Dao sect taking away the limelight from them, everyone would have known about their skirmishes by now. You should pay more attention to them. Emperor De reminded Princess Yulin. Princess Yulin was now slowly taking over the private affairs of the Unrivalled God Dynasty. In other words, she was about to take over the dark net established by Emperor De and become the underground queen of the Unrivalled God Dynasty. I understand, Princess Yulin said solemnly. After leaving Mount Primordial Chaos, Lin Jiufeng bought a carriage and rode it with the White Cat towards the northern regions. Wandering throughout the mortal realm. Traveling the world. He wanted to take a look at the great rivers and famous mountains of this world. He wanted to see if he could use them to sign in. Whenever they passed through cities, what they saw and heard were all discussions about the Primordial Chaos Dao sect's decision to seal themselves for 100 years. The white cat in Lin Jiufeng's arms revealed a naughty smile. They still have no idea that you are the one who suppressed the Primordial Chaos Dao sect. Lin Jiufeng replied in a relaxed manner. It's better that they don't know. It saves us a lot of trouble. We can go and take a look at the scenery all over the world in peace. After having resolved the crisis of the Unrivalled God Dynasty, Lin Jiufeng was about to fulfill his promise of traveling the world. Emperor De begged him to visit Xuanhuang. Xuanhuang was now peaceful. The Primordial Chaos Dao sect tried to assassinate Emperor De and disrupt the world. Lin Jiufeng had no other choice but to suppress the Primordial Chaos Dao sect as a result. The world had become quiet. Everyone focused on familiarizing themselves with this brand new era under the recovery of the world's spiritual energy. With this considered, Lin Jiufeng could now travel the world in peace. Chapter 163, A reunion with Dachuan. The Xuanhuang Great World was currently like a calm lake. The Unrivalled God Dynasty was naturally on the surface of this lake. It ruled over more than half of the world in an upright manner. But beneath the peaceful lake was a fierce undercurrent. Many large fishes and prawns swam freely. Many poisonous pythons and flood dragons were also hidden, silently cultivating to further improve their strength. Nowadays, the world was relatively peaceful. The Primordial Chaos Dao sect sealed themselves, albeit no one knew why. The people of the world, however, made a few wild guesses before they focused their attention on the Unrivalled God Dynasty. It was understandable that they would suspect that the Unrivalled God Dynasty was the reason why the Primordial Chaos Dao sect did such a move. After all, Taoist priest Daoi targeted the Unrivalled God Dynasty before the Primordial Chaos Dao sect chose to seal themselves. No one in the world would believe that the Unrivalled God Dynasty wasn't involved in this matter. Once the threat of the Primordial Chaos Dao sect disappeared, the Unrivalled God Dynasty began to heavily invest in their development. They did not shy away from the public as numerous reforms, laws, and public sectors were established. Emperor De also became bolder. He was certain that Lin Jiufeng secretly made a move against the Primordial Chaos Dao sect. As a result, he sent his subordinates to the Primordial Chaos Dao sect to pay respects and ask for the Primordial Chaos Dao sect's secret manuals and cultivation techniques. They would be donated to the Martial Temple and its branches for the betterment of the world. The Primordial Chaos Dao sect was dumbfounded by Emperor De's move. They thought that this was Lin Jiufeng's true intention when he paid them a visit that day. Furious, they gnashed their teeth and were unwilling to accept Emperor De's request. But in the end, Taoist priest Daoi still gnashed his teeth and handed over what Emperor De wanted. Just like that, Emperor De managed to once again bolster the influence and power of the Martial Temple and its branches. Along with it, the Unrivalled God Dynasty's prestige was also enhanced in one move. When Lin Jiufeng came to know about what happened, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. He said to the white cat, "The phrase once bitten, twice shy truly represents the state of the Primordial Chaos Dao sect today. It's because you are too strong. Why would they even bother with Emperor De's men if not for your deterrence?" The white cat replied. Lin Jiufeng continued on his journey with the white cat. He went from the Jiangnan area to the Mabei area in the middle of the night. Mount Primordial Chaos was within Jiangnan, but it wasn't close to Jiangnan Road. Thus, Lin Jiufeng had to spend a night traveling from Jiangnan to Mabei. From here, Lin Jiufeng headed for the northern regions. Our tour of Jiangnan is complete now that we've witnessed what Jiangnan has to offer. We've enjoyed Jiangnan's misty rains and enjoyed the company of its talented, beautiful, and hospitable people. Now, I'll bring you to Mabe so we can see the men of the north. The scenery in the north is completely different from the misty Jiangnan. Lin Jiufeng added. As long as I'm with you, anywhere is fine. The white cat didn't mind. She just liked to roam around with Lin Jiufeng. If she was asked to travel alone, she wouldn't be interested. Taking advantage of the night, Lin Jiufeng planned to spend his final night in Jiangnan. Tomorrow, he would not be in Jiangnan anymore. Lin Jiufeng didn't use his cultivation base to travel. Instead, like an ordinary person, he let the horse-drawn carriage do the work for him. When the horse was tired, he would then stop to take a look at the scenery around him. He wasn't in a hurry anyway. Of course, the white cat felt the same. Lin Jiufeng thought that he would be traveling all night. But he suddenly saw a familiar figure beneath the moonlight. A plump figure stood by the lake with his hands behind his back. Lin Jiufeng shouted in surprise. Dachuan? The plump figure was none other than Lin Jiufeng's one and only friend, Dachuan. Back then, when Lin Jiufeng was still in the cold palace, Dachuan insisted on delivering food to him. He was the helper who accompanied him throughout those lonely days. Hence, Lin Jiufeng had always regarded Dachuan as his friend. His one and only friend in this world. Dachuan bade farewell to Lin Jiufeng in the imperial capital decades ago. He returned to his hometown in Jiangnan to accompany his old mother. Soon afterwards, he became the commander of Jiangnan Road. But when his mother fell ill, he resigned from his post and focused on being with her. This time, Lin Jiufeng didn't come across Dachuan in his visit to Jiangnan. When he accompanied the white cat to roam around and play, he also looked for Dachuan, but he found no news of him whatsoever. He only heard that Dachuan's old mother had passed away. Then, Dachuan disappeared with her corpse. Lin Jiufeng thought that it would be very difficult for him to see Dachuan again and that the fact that he didn't manage to find him would become his deepest regret. But he didn't expect that on his final night in Jiangnan, he would stumble upon Dachuan at a lake at the base of a random mountain. Lin Jiufeng had never forgotten Dachuan's plump figure. And he would never mistake it for someone else. He exclaimed in joy and stopped the carriage. Dachuan, who was enjoying the night scenery by the lake, turned around in surprise. When he saw Lin Jiufeng, his eyes lit up. He shouted excitedly. Your Royal Highness! Meow! The white cat called out. She was also very happy to see Dachuan, whom she had not seen for a long time. Lin Jiufeng parked the carriage and let the horse eat the grass at the side. He then brought the white cat close to the lake and met up with Dachuan. We haven't seen each other in decades, Lin Jiufeng lamented. Yes, Dachuan greets your Royal Highness. Dachuan laughed and went on his knees. Get up! What's there to kneel before a dethroned crown prince? Lin Jiufeng reached out and helped Dachuan up. Your Royal Highness's words are wrong. The people of the world may not know about it, but how could I not know about the truth? Dachuan added. To be honest, I wasn't sure that your Royal Highness was behind the destruction of the 10,000 Buddha sacred tower, but now that I've seen your Royal Highness here, I'm certain that it was your doing. Lin Jiufeng smiled. But he didn't explain. Dachuan was one of the few people who knew that Lin Jiufeng was a very powerful existence. After all, he had personally seen with both of his eyes how Lin Jiufeng made a move in that battle above the Forbidden City before. Your Royal Highness. The primordial Chaos Dao sect that kicked up such a huge commotion a few days ago. You're also the one that dealt with them, am I right? Dachuan asked. Lin Jiufeng asked, why do you say so? Dachuan looked at Lin Jiufeng in admiration. In the entire Yuhua God Dynasty, and even in the entire world, the only person who can do such a thing is none other than your Royal Highness. When Lin Jiufeng was first imprisoned within the confines of the Cold Palace, he had become nothing but an ordinary young man. At that time, Dachuan was only in his teenage years. He was even younger than Lin Jiufeng. Today, Dachuan was now almost 100 years old. He had seen a lot, experienced a lot. His horizons have long been broadened. It was only when he looked back from where he came from that he realized that the might of the Crown Prince in the Cold Palace was as boundless as the ocean. Dachuan, it has been decades since we've seen each other.
You've really gone through a lot. To think that you even know how to flatter someone now.
Lin Jiufeng replied with a smile. He didn't refute Dachuan's words. But it was also a form of indirect admission.
Dachuan chuckled. A simple-minded expression appeared on his plump face.
The 100-year-old human god still looked the same as he was when he first met Lin Jiufeng 90 years ago. But of course, even a human god couldn't escape the clutches of time. It might be subtle, but traces of the passage of time could be seen on Dachuan's figure. It has truly been so long since we've last seen each other, Your Royal Highness. This Dachuan has become older, but Your Royal Highness still looks the same as you are back then.
Your appearance really hasn't been affected by time. Dachuan lamented.
Lin Jiufeng hugged the white cat and looked at the obviously aged Dachuan. He was now at the human god realm. The way he carried himself and his mentality had long been changed by the passage of time. The current Dachuan was not only physically old but also mentally old.
Did your mother pass away? Lin Jiufeng asked.
Yes. She was at peace when she left. She was surrounded by her children and grandchildren. With the help of this recovery of spiritual energy, she managed to live for more than 100 years. She could be considered to have died of old age. I brought her corpse back to our hometown when I was young and I buried her in the happiest place according to her memories. I disappeared because I guarded her tomb for 3 years.
Dachuan explained. That's nice. To be able to leave this world in peace is nice.
We can say that she had thoroughly lived her life in this mortal realm to her satisfaction. Life, death, illness, and old age are daily occurrences in this mortal world. Lin Jiufeng patted Dachuan's shoulder. Yes. It's been 3 years, so I don't feel too sad about her departure anymore. I feel nostalgic about her passing instead.
Your Royal Highness, may I invite you to my humble abode for a drink? I haven't delivered food to Your Royal Highness for many years. To be honest, I really missed those peaceful days. Dachuan invited Lin Jiufeng. Chapter 164, Dachuan's Revelation. Lin Jiufeng followed Dachuan to his residence.
At the foot of a green mountain, by the lake, in a courtyard. Only Dachuan, his wife, and their young grandson lived here.
Upon Lin Jiufeng's arrival, Dachuan's wife immediately went to prepare the food and wine.
The child looked at Lin Jiufeng with a confused look. He then started talking gibberish.
Lin Jiufeng put the white cat down.
The child was immediately attracted by the beautiful and flawless white cat. He chased after the white cat as his giggles filled the quaint abode.
Dachuan looked at him lovingly before inviting Lin Jiufeng into the house. Only the 3 of you live here? Lin Jiufeng asked. Yes, I stayed here to guard my mother's tomb.
My wife accompanied me here and she's also taking care of my pitiful grandson, Dachuan replied.
Pitiful?
Lin Jiufeng looked at the child playing with the white cat.
He couldn't help but be asked curiously. His parents died on Xuanhuang Road for the dynasty.
He was just born when they were swallowed by the demonic creatures that appeared from out of nowhere. When I found them, it was already too late.
I could only save the child. Dachuan sighed.
Lin Jiufeng looked at Dachuan, ripples appeared in his heart. First, his old mother passed away. Then, his children died. It was no wonder that Dachuan's looked so dispirited both physically and mentally. I've already dealt with those demonic creatures. The 10,000 Buddha sacred tower has collapsed, and every demonic creature in Xuanhuang is dead. Lin Jiufeng could only say these words as a form of consolation. Dachuan's eyes turned slightly red as he said, Your Royal Highness is the guardian deity of the Unrivalled God Dynasty and the people of the world. Although the people do not know of Your Royal Highness's heroic deeds, they have all received Your Royal Highness's grace. Lin Jiufeng waved his hand in dismissal. I'm also a member of the Unrivalled God Dynasty's royal family. When I was young, I enjoyed glory and wealth that others would never be able to enjoy in their entire lives. It's only natural that I protect the people of this land now that I am capable enough to do so. But it truly is a pity that the sword energy that I left in your body didn't save the child's parents. It was only then that Dachuan knew that Lin Jiufeng had left a streak of sword energy in him. Of course, Dachuan immediately knew that the streak of sword energy was there to protect him. It has been 30 years, but he actually didn't notice its presence at all.
Your Royal Highness, Dachuan was so touched that he didn't know what to say. Lin Jiufeng chuckled and said, "Let's drink a lot tonight." Dachuan nodded and said, "I've been constantly thinking about when I can drink with your Royal Highness once again.
Now that you are here to drink with me personally, I don't have any more regrets left in this life of mine." "You are a human god expert, you can live for a long time," Lin Jiufeng said.
"The world is changing rapidly, your Royal Highness.
What I've seen so far has already changed my outlook in life. I don't want to become famous, nor do I want to become a powerful cultivator.
I only want to spend the rest of my life in peace with my wife and also raise that kid."
"I have no other wishes," Dachuan said.
Lin Jiufeng looked at Dachuan.
Dachuan was younger than him, and both of them walked on different paths. Lin Jiufeng pursued the peak of cultivation. But he had always been at the peak and had always desired even greater heights.
Dachuan walked on the path of the common people.
He married and had descendants. After experiencing the ups and downs of life, although he also had the cultivation base of a human god and can still live for 1,000 years, his mentality had long changed. He no longer had the vigor of his youth. He had become an old man, while Lin Jiufeng was still a young man.
"The sword energy that I left in you that day will continue to exist.
The stronger I become, that sword energy will also become stronger. Therefore, I shall continue to leave it with you. Treat it as your family's trump card."
"It might be useful in the future," Lin Jiufeng said to Dachuan.
Lin Jiufeng had put a lot of thought into that sword energy that he gave to Dachuan. The reason why it remained in existence even after 30 years was that Lin Jiufeng has always remained powerful and was also constantly becoming stronger. The sword energy would also become increasingly powerful as Lin Jiufeng became stronger. And the might of that streak of sword energy was equivalent to Lin Jiufeng's fully powered strike. As long as it wasn't removed or activated, Dachuan would always have it as his trump card.
"Your Royal Highness, let's drink." Dachuan looked at Lin Jiufeng gratefully. Coincidentally, his wife was finally done preparing the food and wine. She brought them out and presented them to the two. Lin Jiufeng nodded at Dachuan's wife. She was a very gentle woman.
She was also in her 70s, but she looked to be only 40 years old, beautiful, and kind. After pouring wine for both Lin Jiufeng and Dachuan, she retreated to the side to take care of her grandson.
"You gave her a lot of spiritual medicines?" Lin Jiufeng asked.
"Yes, I gave her a lot of those. Back then, I gathered a lot of spiritual medicines because I originally wanted to treat my mother's body. But the cycle of life, death, illness, and reincarnation isn't something that I can change.
She's already at the end of her life and those spiritual medicines couldn't possibly save her anymore.
Thus, I gave all of them to my wife for her to consume."
Dachuan drank a cup of wine.
"I've lost my old mother, my youngest son, and my daughter-in-law. I won't be able to endure it if I also lost my wife. I promised her that as long as I live, I will support her, and we shall support each other till death do us part," Dachuan said. Lin Jiufeng drank his wine and said softly, "Why don't you just let her cultivate? In this brand new era, although she might not become a powerful powerhouse, you can at least help her make a breakthrough into the martial sage realm. If you do that, then she can continue to stay by your side. I'm working hard on that too, but she's already in her 70s. It's difficult for her to cultivate now that she's past her prime age." Dachuan shook his head.
This brand new era was bound to be a great era.
But not everything could be resolved just because the world was slowly recovering its spiritual energy. Both Lin Jiufeng and Dachuan enjoyed each other's company as they drank and talked about all sorts of topics. Of course, what they mostly talked about were just family matters and other trivial matters.
Just like before. Dachuan would talk while Lin Jiufeng listened. The scene was just like back in the cold palace.
Dachuan told Lin Jiufeng many trivial matters, letting Lin Jiufeng feel that he was still a member of the mortal realm. It seemed as if nothing had changed.
Dachuan and Lin Jiufeng talked about trivial matters.
If it was in the past, Lin Jiufeng wouldn't even listen to such things, nor would he be bothered by them.
This was because the gap between Lin Jiufeng and those trivial matters was huge. But because it was Dachuan who was talking, Lin Jiufeng obediently listened. Lin Jiufeng cultivated in seclusion all this time. Those he came into contact with were all sorts of powerhouses, all of whom were high and mighty. They weren't humble at all. It has been a long time since Lin Jiufeng felt and heard of the struggles in the mortal world. But today, Dachuan made Lin Jiufeng realize that the world did not only belong to cultivators. In addition, one would still have to return to the mortal realm after their long seclusion. Lin Jiufeng relished what he heard and felt. Your Royal Highness. According to what we have always done in the past, I should tell you some big things after I'm done with these trivial matters. Dachuan's cheeks were red as he said with a smile. I'm listening. Lin Jiufeng gulped down the wine in his cup. Although I am practically living in seclusion here, I still know a little about the outside world. We are at the edge of Jiangnan's borders, close to the Central Plains. Since I'm this close to the borders, I've heard a lot of news. But the biggest thing I've heard is about the internal strife between the various Dao sects, Dachuan said. Lin Jiufeng raised his brows and looked at Dachuan. Internal strife in the Dao sects? I'm not sure about the specifics. After all, Dao sects are divided into many categories. For example, the Quanjin sect and the Primordial Chaos Dao sect. They could be considered a member of the Dao sects, but they technically belong in two different categories. The Quanjin sect is of the same lineage as the traditional Dao sects like Mount Longhu, the Five Rise sect, and the Zenith Heaven Path sect. Their ancestors are all cultivators of the Dao sections. In other words, they are all senior brothers, martial uncles, or even martial nephews. As for the Dao sects like the Primordial Chaos Dao sect, their founders were rogue cultivators with incomprehensibly high cultivation bases. They are the complete opposite of these traditional Daoist sections. The so-called internal strife is the result of the grudges between these traditional Daoist sections. Dachuan explained. I see, Lin Jiufeng finally understood. Chapter 165, Internal Strife in the Dao Sects. After Dachuan explained the history of the Dao sects to Lin Jiufeng, he finally understood what was going on. Why was it that when the Primordial Chaos Dao sect assassinated Emperor Di and caused such a huge commotion with their great fanfare, the other Dao sects remained indifferent and ignored them? It turned out that there was a detailed division among the Dao sects. It was simply beyond Lin Jiufeng's expectations. Then what exactly is the reason behind the internal strife of the Dao sects that you've mentioned? Lin Jiufeng asked curiously. There are a few rumors about it. Some say that the treasures left behind by the ancestors of the Dao sects have been unearthed, and the various members of the Dao sects are unable to divide the spoils evenly. There are also those who say that the supreme Daoist scripture of the Dao sects has appeared, causing a few of them to compete for it, resulting in the current internal strife. But others also say that it was because someone wanted to form a single major faction made out of every member of the Dao sects, causing the other sects to fight against such a decision, resulting in the internal strife. Dachuan told Lin Jiufeng the versions that he heard himself. On normal days, Dachuan was like the old men in villages. He strolled around and listened to the gossip of others. He didn't expose his cultivation base as a human god expert. Using his disguise, he heard a lot from people in various walks of life. These three versions were the ones that were most likely to be true and the most prevalent. Lin Jiufeng replied, this is an internal matter of the Dao sections. As long as they don't kick up a fuss and don't harm the common people, then no matter what happens, it has nothing to do with the Unrivalled God Dynasty. That's right. That is what I thought at first, but recently, there seems to be a real fight going on in these Dao sections. Powerhouses from all walks of life have appeared. Many Daoist perfected ones that I've never even heard of also emerged from out of nowhere. These people are all very powerful. They can even split mountains and boil seas. Once they truly got into a serious fight with each other, the victims would still be the common people. Dachuan explained. Lin Jiufeng frowned. This was indeed a possibility. But such a situation hasn't happened yet, so there's no need to worry. I still believe that since they have achieved success in their cultivation, they probably won't kill the innocent. Lin Jiufeng raised his wine cup. Dachuan also raised his wine cup. I only hope so.
In this turbulent world, no matter who wins or loses, the common people will be the ones to suffer.
Lin Jiufeng nodded.
This confirmed the saying, when a nation prospers, the people suffer.
When a nation is dying, the people suffer.
For this meal, Dachuan talked about trivial matters to life insights and then to the safety of the common people.
They talked as they drank.
After a few hours, Dachuan was finally drunk. Both Lin Jiufeng and Dachuan didn't use their true qi to dispel the alcohol.
They only relied on their bodies. Dachuan was still not as good as Lin Jiufeng in drinking.
In addition, he got carried away by the atmosphere and drank a lot. Thus, he directly collapsed drunk.
Lin Jiufeng looked at the drunken Dachuan and then at the moonlight shining into the window.
The bright moon hung high in the sky.
It was already deep in the night.
A cold breeze blew, causing ripples in the lake.
Lin Jiufeng could see it even though he was far away.
Dachuan's wife had already brought her grandson to sleep.
She didn't pay attention to what was happening between Dachuan and Lin Jiufeng.
The white cat laid in the living room and cultivated silently. Lin Jiufeng looked around and drank the remaining wine in the cup. Then, he put down the cup and helped Dachuan to the bed before covering him with a quilt.
Little cat, let's go.
Lin Jiufeng tidied his clothes and said softly.
Meow. Aren't you going to stay here for the night? The white cat asked. No need. I've said what I wanted to say. A repeat of tonight will happen if I continue to stay here.
Lin Jiufeng shook his head.
Aren't you going to say goodbye to Dachuan? The white cat jumped off the table.
The farewells of adults are usually done discreetly. There's no need for sad farewells. Lin Jiufeng shook his head and strode out of the courtyard. He was already done saying what he wanted to say to Dachuan. Dachuan was his friend. But after all, the two of them weren't on the same path. It would be better if he left directly after they were done drinking.
The white cat silently followed Lin Jiufeng into the carriage.
Under the night sky, the horse neighed and pulled the carriage away.
Back in the house, Dachuan's snoring reverberated like thunder.
The coincidental encounter allowed Lin Jiufeng to know more about Dachuan's current situation.
After knowing that he was doing fine, Lin Jiufeng could finally let go of his worries for Dachuan.
After tonight, he would continue to pursue the peak of cultivation.
Dachuan would also continue to live in seclusion with his wife and grandson. No one knew when the two of them would meet once again.
As for the internal strife of the Dao sects that Dachuan mentioned, Lin Jiufeng only treated it as another piece of information.
The internal strife in the Dao sects had nothing to do with him at all. Could they really bear to fight until the world itself was destroyed?
The tipsy Lin Jiufeng sat in the carriage.
The white cat drove the carriage as it rapidly advanced through the night.
Lin Jiufeng fell asleep. This was one of the few times that he managed to sleep.
The next day, an earthquake shook Lin Jiufeng awake. Rumble. It was as if the sky was about to collapse and the earth was about to split apart. The cries of many people sounded in his ears. Lin Jiufeng opened his eyes.
His drunkenness instantly disappeared. He lifted the curtain of the carriage and saw a shocking scene. On the peak of a distant mountain, a Taoist priest was casting a spell.
He roared. Quanzhen sect, you are being too overbearing.
After the roar, he seized a mountain and directly uprooted it. With his terrifying cultivation base as the foundation, he hurled it over directly at his enemy. The other party was also a Taoist priest. His body was like lightning as he shot out at breakneck speeds. He condensed a gigantic energy form of himself and his phantom struck ruthlessly.
Boom! The mountain directly exploded. Rocks shot into the clouds, and tempestuous waves swept up layers of clouds. The shattered rocks fell onto the ground.
But when the huge mountain crashed down, the world beneath trembled.
A small town close to Lin Jiufeng was directly annihilated by the plummeting mountain. None of the people inside managed to escape.
When Lin Jiufeng saw this, his eyes narrowed and his face turned cold.
He looked into the distance.
The area within a few hundred miles seemed to have been cleansed. A shattered mountain could be seen surrounded by many corpses. There were no survivors. But the two Taoist priests didn't seem to care at all. They were still fighting. Every move they executed carried a hint of the great Tao as they ruthlessly struck against each other. Deep rumbling sounds reverberated throughout the land. The collateral damage caused by their battle was simply too much. The screams and cries of many common people were all overshadowed by the sounds of their fight. Only the impact and the dull sounds of their collisions filled both heaven and earth. Seeing this, Lin Jiufeng's eyebrows stretched tautly. He said in a low voice, "The Tao sect's internal strife." This was the internal strife of the Tao sects that Dachuan had just told him about. One of the two Taoist priests was from the Quanjin sect. Although Lin Jiufeng didn't know which Tao sect the other one was from, considering that he had a domain and was obviously a supremacy realm expert. He must be a cultivator from one of the Tao sects. I thought that the internal strife of the Taoist sects would not affect the Xuanhuang God Dynasty and its people. But now, it seems that these mighty cultivators truly don't care about the deaths of the common people. They actually fought in such a crowded area and are actually being so unscrupulous as to ignore the casualties around them. Not only that, but they seem to be even doing this deliberately. Lin Jiufeng coldly muttered. "Meow." The white cat said, "In this battle, at least 1,000 people died. They deserve death for killing so many people." Lin Jiufeng coldly stated. He couldn't be bothered with why the two were fighting. It didn't matter to Lin Jiufeng who was right or wrong. Lin Jiufeng directly pointed his finger out. Clang! A streak of sword energy shot out and traveled through the air. It shot out so fast that it directly pierced through the clouds and penetrated the heads of the two Taoist priests. Pooh! Pooh! The two Taoist priests fell straight down. What they were arguing about was no longer important. Chapter 166, Overthinking the battle finally came to an end with the deaths of the two Taoist priests. But the collateral damage of their battle remained. Those who died could not be revived. The only consolation for Lin Jiufeng was that he had successfully avenged their deaths. Why are the people from the Tao sect so unscrupulous as to fight at such a crowded place? The white cat didn't understand. Lin Jiufeng shook his head and replied, "I didn't expect that they would fight here when there are so many places for them to fight among the countless mountains and ravines of the world. In fact, they could even fight above the clouds." The internal strife of the Tao sects that Dachuan mentioned seems to be already at the point of no return. Lin Jiufeng muttered and lowered the carriage's curtain. The white cat drove the carriage away from the war-torn land. The rest of the recovery work would be handled by the officials of the Xuanhuang God Dynasty. Lin Jiufeng had already avenged the dead by killing the culprits. The carriage continued to travel from the central plains to the northern regions. As for the two Taoist priests that died, Lin Jiufeng didn't think about them at all. No one knew that they died in his hands. The carriage swayed and continued its journey to the central plains. In the place where the two Taoist priests died, other Taoist priests soon appeared. Senior brother Maliang was killed by someone from the Five Rice Taoist sect. A young Taoist priest shouted angrily. Bullshasterisk T. That Taoist priest Maliang from your Quanjin sect must be the one that killed my senior brother Yulin. A Taoist priest in the distance rebutted. The two Taoist priests that Lin Jiufeng killed were from the Quanjin sect and the Five Rice Tao sect. They were both cornerstones of their respective sects. The Five Rice Tao sect and the Quanjin sect have the same lineage. Yet, you guys can actually be so vicious. You all are simply devoid of conscience. You are ruining the reputation and prestige of our Tao sects. You monsters! An uncle master from the Quanjin sect stood forward and berated. He put down the hat of righteousness first and placed his sect up on a pedestal. Stop trying to frame us. What do you mean by ruining the reputation of the Tao sects? The Five Rice Tao sect can't bear the weight of such an accusation. We are all people of the Tao sects. What use is there in using such a trick against each other? Today, your Quanjin sect has abused your authority to bully others. By relying on your strength, you casually killed a fellow Taoist priest who are also people of the Tao sections. Before our ancestors' corpse, we, the Five Rice Tao sect, will definitely properly denounce you all.
An old Taoist priest from the Five Rice Tao sect couldn't stand by anymore. He coldly announced.
There were more than 10 people on both sides, and they all knew that Ma Liang and Yulin were killed by someone else. But regardless of whether they were killed by someone else, they had to put the blame on the other party. This way, they would be able to gain the upper hand in the ancestral ruins.
As for who the murderer was, they did not have the time to think about the culprit.
What they wanted was the right to occupy the ancestral ruins.
The internal strife of the Tao sects was all because of the ruins of a Taoist ancestor.
Every traditional Tao sect had the right to compete for it, and none of them planned on compromising. For this reason, they battled against each other. They could even temporarily not take revenge for their fellow sect members who were killed by others. Instead, they would first accuse the other party of their deaths. The truth didn't matter anymore. What was important was causing trouble. The Xuanhuang sect and the Five Rice Tao sect immediately did what they were supposed to do. Both sides argued endlessly, but because they were evenly matched, they didn't dare to fight due to the risk of mutual destruction. The Five Rice Tao sect killed a disciple of the Xuanhuang sect. We must take our revenge. I will go and report this to the sect leader and ask him to denounce you guys in front of the ancestral ruins. The uncle master of the Xuanhuang sect waved his hand and asked a disciple to bring Ma Liang's corpse away.
Do you really think that only the people from the Xuanhuang sect have mouths and that those from the Five Rice Tao sect are mutes?
The old Taoist priest from the Five Rice Tao sect coldly snorted. He also got his disciples to bring Yulin's corpse away.
The meeting between both sides was filled with tension, but they only said a few harsh words before going their own way.
The Xuanhuang sect disciples left with Ma Liang's corpse.
A young Taoist priest asked curiously. Uncle Master, senior brother Ma Liang was obviously pierced through his glabella with a sword.
His divine soul was also ruthlessly cut into pieces.
That Yulin of the Five Rice Tao sect also died in this manner.
Why did you say that senior brother Ma Liang was killed by the Five Rice Tao sect?
You are still young. Let Uncle Master explain.
At this critical moment, no matter who killed Ma Liang, we must all say that the culprit must be someone from the Five Rice Tao sect, the Uncle Master from Xuanhuang sect explained.
Just like how the Five Rice Tao sect insisted that our Xuanhuang sect killed Taoist priest Yulin? The little Taoist priest asked. Yes, the Uncle Master nodded.
Right now, the few major Taoist sects, including our Xuanhuang sect, are all surrounding the northern mountains.
We are still very restrained in our actions. We are just waiting for the day when the ancestral ruins appears. Once the day arrives, a world-shocking battle will surely occur.
Your senior brother Ma Liang is hot-tempered and fought against Taoist Yulin, resulting in him losing his life. We must investigate this matter thoroughly when we're done with the ancestral ruins. Yes, we must avenge senior brother Ma Liang. The little Taoist priest nodded firmly. On the other side, the people of the Five Rice Tao sect also warned their disciples as they explained to them the rationale behind the argument of both sects earlier.
The equilibrium of the situation is about to be destroyed.
If anything or something abnormal happens in the northern mountains, the equilibrium might truly be destroyed, causing the largest war in the history of the Tao sections.
Someone from the Five Rice Tao sect explained. There's an ancient city in the northern mountains. But it's also a place where millions of people live. A female Taoist priest raised her hand and said weakly. Silence. No one answered.
But the sound of rushing footsteps remained constant. From the sound of it, the owners of the footsteps have long resolved themselves. After the battle of the two Taoist priests in a densely packed residential area, Lin Jiufeng became vigilant along the way. This way, if there was something wrong, he could immediately intervene. The casualties earlier were the common people of the Unrivalled God Dynasty. They were the common people that Emperor Yuan, Emperor Ming, and Emperor De worked hard to take care of. Although Lin Jiufeng wasn't the emperor, he had always been secretly protecting the common people along with the late emperors. Lin Jiufeng remained in a heightened state of awareness throughout the journey to the Central Plains. But despite his vigilance, nothing happened. Everything remained peaceful in the 3 days that passed. Lin Jiufeng was puzzled.
Didn't they say that the Central Plains is the world of the Dao sects?
The mountains where these Dao sects have established their foundations are all located around here.
Dachuan said that the internal strife in the Dao sects is already intense.
The 2 Taoist priests that we encountered 3 days ago is enough proof of that, but why hasn't there been any movement from them in the past 3 days?
The white cat shook her head. She had no idea. Perhaps I'm just overthinking.
Lin Jiufeng shook his head. Since it has been quiet over the past 3 days, there was no need for him to be so vigilant anymore.
He looked ahead of him.
A mountain range blocked their path.
What's the name of this mountain? It looks quite impressive. The white cat asked. Oh, there's also an ancient city on the summit of this mountain?
That is the famous northern mountains of the Central Plains.
Lin Jiufeng replied. The ancient city on the northern mountains is the famous Northern Mountains ancient city.
It is said that in the previous era, this ancient city was already established.
Millions of people are currently living within its confines today. How about we go there and take a look? Lin Jiufeng asked with a smile.
Wait, why are those Taoist priests surrounding this ancient city? The white cat's eyes seemed to be able to see through things.
As a result, she could see things that Lin Jiufeng could not.
What Taoist priests?
Lin Jiufeng asked quizzically.
But the white cat confidently added. They are loitering around the ancient city, there's so many of them. Lin Jiufeng's divine soul immediately swept over.
Hiss! He gasped. The city was surrounded by densely packed groups of Taoist priests. There were even a few of them at the Boundless Realm.
It turned out that he wasn't overthinking. The silence of the past 3 days was truly just the calm before the storm. Chapter 167, Northern Mountains. Lord. When Lin Jiufeng's divine soul swept across, what he saw were clearly differentiated Taoist priests. The 4 traditional factions of the Dao sects, which were the Quanjin sect, the Zenith Heaven Path sect, the 5 Rice Dao sect, and Mount Longhu were all present.
The atmosphere between them was very tense.
They looked at each other coldly. Just as Dachuan had said, the internal strife had become very serious to ignore.
These major traditional Dao sects came from the same ancestor. But now, they were completely cold towards each other.
Lin Jiufeng could tell that these people from the Dao sects were very restrained.
However, despite the obvious hostility, these people seemed to be restraining themselves.
It was as if they were waiting for something to happen before fighting.
How did you see these Taoist priests? Lin Jiufeng asked the white cat.
My eyes can see through illusions and see the truth, the white cat replied.
Why didn't I know about that?
Lin Jiufeng picked up the white cat in surprise.
It only appeared recently. To be precise, I only found out about it that night when you were drinking with Dachuan. Of course, it's natural that you don't know about it. The white cat explained.
Lin Jiufeng put her down and looked at the people from the Dao sects.
These people from the 4 traditional Dao sects have surrounded the Northern Mountains ancient city. Just what exactly are they trying to do?
Lin Jiufeng was baffled.
Is there some kind of a treasure here in the ancient city? The white cat guessed. But what treasure could force the 4 traditional Dao sects to fall out with each other? They are even staring at each other in a way that makes it seem like they wanted to immediately kill the other party?
Lin Jiufeng smacked his lips.
If these people from the Dao sects fought, wouldn't this place be overturned? The white cat suddenly asked. Lin Jiufeng's expression changed. He looked at the Northern Mountains ancient city. The ancient city was huge. The entire Northern Mountains was the city.
Millions of people call the Northern Mountains their home.
If these people from the Dao sects fought, the common people would suffer.
If they were as unscrupulous as the 2 Taoist priests from a few days ago, this Northern Mountain ancient city would definitely be destroyed in the aftermath of their battle.
Can't they go somewhere else? Lin Jiufeng frowned. Could it be that what they wanted was in this city? Are you going to intervene? The white cat looked at Lin Jiufeng.
Lin Jiufeng thought for a while and replied, let's go inside the city first. In any case, they have no idea who I am, so they won't stop me from entering the city. I want to see just what kind of treasure would 4 traditional Dao sects covet at the same time. There were many people from each of the 4 traditional Dao sections. Each sect had 2 to 3 boundless realm cultivators, so none of them could be underestimated. Once a fight broke out, Lin Jiufeng really wasn't confident that he could kill all of them with one strike. If they were given a chance to fight back, the ancient city would be in trouble. To thoroughly squash a problem, the core of the problem must be identified and solved first. Hence, Lin Jiufeng directly went inside the ancient city to look for the treasure that the 4 Dao sects were willing to fight each other for. Lin Jiufeng openly rode on the carriage and sat close to the door. His outstanding temperament attracted the attention of a few people in the dark. But since Lin Jiufeng concealed his cultivation base, they ultimately judged that he was a mere young master from a rich family. Who would have thought that the driver, Lin Jiufeng, was the mysterious guardian deity of the Unrivalled God Dynasty? As Lin Jiufeng drove the carriage, he eavesdropped on a few Taoist priests. What treasures are in the ancestral ruins? Master, the 4 traditional Dao sects have fallen out with each other. They have shed all pretense of cordiality just for the ancestral ruins. Just what exactly is the treasure inside? Master, just tell us. A few younger disciples pleaded with their master. All right, let me explain. It's said that the original version of the Taoist scripture is inside the ancestral ruins. It's called the Scripture of the Great Tao. It depicts the origin of our Tao sects, and it would be an understatement to say that it was valuable and priceless. But the ancestral ruins does not only contain the Taoist scripture. The secret to becoming an immortal is also in the ancestral ruins of our founder. Because of these, it doesn't matter if we have to kill others to obtain them. What matters is that we cannot give up. Let alone falling out with each other, no matter who it is, no one will be willing to give up the secret to becoming an immortal. The master explained in a low voice to his disciples. Lin Jiufeng heard his words. The ancestral ruins has the scripture of the great Tao and the secret to becoming an immortal. This will indeed make the people of the Tao sects go crazy, Lin Jiufeng muttered in his heart. The 4 great traditional Tao sects came from the same lineage. They all believed that they had the right to inherit the treasures and secrets inside. Among them, the Xuanhuang sect, which had developed the best among the Tao sects, but also wanted to take everything for themselves, instantly offended the other 3 sects. The Xuanhuang sect developed well and even produced an immortal at their peak. In other words, they were the face of the Tao sects. But their glory belonged in the previous era. In this brand new era, a true top-notch powerhouse still didn't exist. The immortal of the Xuanhuang sect was also nowhere to be seen. The recovery of the world's spiritual energy had yet to reach its peak. The situation of the world wasn't fixed just yet. They were basically playing on the same even field, so what right did the Xuanhuang sect have to claim everything for themselves? Was it because they were the face of the 4 great traditional Tao sects? The retaliation of the other major sects made the Xuanhuang sect lose its face. The Xuanhuang sect had always been proud that their sect had once produced an immortal. They considered themselves to be the leader of the 4 great traditional Tao sects. But after being humiliated by the other Tao sects, the Xuanhuang sect was enraged. The result of this anger was that the 4 great traditional Tao sects got into a serious fight. Many people died, and each of them dropped all pretense. The 4 great traditional Tao sects had truly shed all pretense of cordiality. Right now, they couldn't wait to destroy each other and emerge victorious in this brand new era. To be honest, the reason why they weren't making their move just yet was that the ancestral ruins had yet to appear. No one dared to make a move first. If one of them did, it would definitely be ganged up by the other 3 sects. The 4 great traditional Tao sects restrained themselves. None of them dared to enter the ancient city. Thus, they could only surround the ancient city and keep an eye out for the opportune moment to barge in. But despite them being practically restricted by each other, they all agreed that this standstill was the only thing maintaining the equilibrium of peace between these 4 Tao sects. Most importantly, if no one moved, no one would be able to take the higher ground against the others. But what they didn't expect was that Lin Jiufeng had greatly benefited from this situation.
Lin Jiufeng swaggered into the northern mountains' ancient city.
Then, he stopped the carriage and looked at the crowd. The place was bustling with noise and excitement.
The common people didn't notice anything strange.
They continued to live their days as usual. The children were also playing about in the streets, the sounds of their happy laughter echoed throughout the city. The old people sat in front of their doors, they watched the children play with smiles on their faces. There was deep melancholy in their eyes. They thought about their past and how they once lived a carefree life as children.
Northern Mountain's ancient city, it was truly an ancient city filled with history.
The moment Lin Jiufeng stepped onto the city, the system that remained quiet for the past few days suddenly appeared.
Do you want to sign in at the Northern Mountain's ancient city?
Lin Jiufeng replied without hesitation.
Sign in. Signing in at the ancient city that survived through numerous eras. Just what reward would the ancient city bring to Lin Jiufeng? Sign in successful. Received a copy of the Northern Mountain Sutra. Northern Mountain Sutra?
Lin Jiufeng raised his brows.
What was this Northern Mountain Sutra? He had never heard of it before. Boom!
A stream of information entered his mind and it told Lin Jiufeng the origins of the Northern Mountain Sutra. The Northern Mountain Sutra is an invincible cultivation technique created by the Northern Mountain's Lord.
It can infinitely heal injuries. In an instant, one's flesh and blood will be reborn. Even a broken soul can be repaired. There would be no hidden injuries left after every healing process.
When Lin Jiufeng saw the introduction, he was shocked. Of course, if the injuries were severe enough, the effectiveness of the Northern Mountain Sutra would directly be halved. The more severe the injuries were, the worse its effects would become.
But this didn't mean that it wasn't a terrifying and overpowered cultivation technique anymore. Who is this Northern Mountain's Lord?
Lin Jiufeng was puzzled. He had read countless books, but he had never seen any mention of this so-called Northern Mountain's Lord. Logically speaking, a person who could create such a powerful cultivation technique should have been famous throughout history. Chapter 168, Northern Mountain's Lord's Origin. The Northern Mountains Sutra was created by the Northern Mountain's Lord. This was an invincible cultivation technique that could tempt even immortals. But the Northern Mountain's Lord's name wasn't widely known. At the very least, there was no mention of such a name in the books that Lin Jiufeng had read.
The books that Lin Jiufeng had read consisted of the entire royal library of the Xuanhuang God Dynasty.
It was also the library of the martial temples that were currently famous all over the world. Since there were no records of this name in the royal library, 99% of the people in the world back then probably had no idea as to who this Northern Mountain's Lord was. Lin Jiufeng looked at the Northern Mountain's ancient city and guessed in his heart, the Northern Mountain's Lord must be an expert from this ancient city. That's the only explanation why he is basically non-existent in the outside world. The carriage passed through the ancient city streets and stopped at the temple in the middle of the city. The temple was the divine temple that the citizens of the Northern Mountain's ancient city often visited for worship. Inside the temple were idols that the people of this ancient city worshipped. Lin Jiufeng paid the temple a visit to see if there was any information about this so-called Northern Mountain's Lord. At the same time, he was curious about the location of the Dao sect's relic. The four great traditional Dao sects wouldn't have a reason to fight anymore so long as I prevent the appearance of this so-called ancestral ruins, Lin Jiufeng thought. Doing so would also be a form of protection for the citizens of the Northern Mountain's ancient city. Standing at the entrance of the temple, he raised his eyes and looked around him. The temple was a huge building with steps that extended all the way up. The difference in height between the summit and the base was enormous. The steps inside the temple winded up in segments and it seemed as if one would be climbing a mountain if they dared to scale these steps. Near the stairs, there were various statues of old and young, men and women. Their expressions, postures, and auras were all different and unique. Lin Jiufeng carried the white cat and walked along with the pious people who came to pay their respects. "Outsider, are you here to join in the crowd?" An old granny walked together with Lin Jiufeng. Lin Jiufeng nodded and said, "I have heard about this place, so I came to visit. The people enshrined here are those who made great contributions to the Northern Mountains race. As long as the person contributed to the Northern Mountains race, a clay body will be made for them with their autobiography.
They will stand here and enjoy the incense offerings of their descendants.
The old granny climbed the stairs with nimble hands and feet. She paid her respects to some of the statues along the way.
Old man, why aren't you worshipping all of them together?
Lin Jiufeng was very curious. This old granny actually chose only certain statues to worship. Upon closer inspection, the statues that she worshipped were all women. Moreover, they were all young girls and even babies. She didn't worship the older ones at all. This puzzled Lin Jiufeng.
Young man, you don't understand, do you?
The old granny chuckled.
How old are you? Lin Jiufeng asked with a smile.
I'm 99 this year, I'm about to cross 100, the old granny said proudly. Big sister, you're still very young. Lin Jiufeng muttered in his heart, but he didn't say it out loud. You must worship a specific statue for a specific wish. If you want to be healthy, pay your respects to the statues of those old people who have lived for more than 100 years. If you want to be powerful and successful in your cultivation, then pay your respects to those powerful warriors. If you want to marry a beautiful woman, then pay your respects to those young women. As for me, I just want to pray for my granddaughter's safety and fortune. That's why I'm paying my respects to the statue of these children. These children will protect and bless my granddaughter, the old granny replied.
I see. Lin Jiufeng was enlightened as he looked around in wonder.
Such a saying was unheard of. Have these statues produced miracles before?
Lin Jiufeng asked. In the beginning? No.
But as everyone paid their respects more and more, the faith of the worshippers combined all together to form the soul of these statues. After which, they gradually began to produce miracles, the old granny replied.
You know about the concept of faith? Lin Jiufeng was impressed.
That is something that every member of the Northern Mountains race must know. It's only natural that we know about such a concept, for each and every one of us are working hard to become a statue of the divine temple after our deaths. Fortunately, as long as we have contributed to the Northern Mountains race, we will be worshipped by our own people and the people's faith will accumulate to ultimately turn that person into a god. The old granny explained.
Yes, a god.
More accurately, a man-made god. There were originally no gods in the world, but because of faith, gods were born. This was what the people of the North Mountain race were doing. In the beginning, the statues were mere clay statues, but as generations after generations placed their faith in the statues, they eventually went on to become a god created from the amalgamation of faith that these members of the Northern Mountains race had on them.
Lin Jiufeng couldn't help but ask, may I ask? I wonder if you've ever heard of the name Northern Mountains Lord? The Northern Mountains Lord?
The old granny was stunned.
Yes, the Northern Mountains Lord.
Lin Jiufeng looked at the old granny expectantly.
The Northern Mountains Lord. Now that is something that I don't hear often.
The old granny recalled.
Lin Jiufeng was shocked. This big sister knew something about the Northern Mountains Lord? Can you tell me about him? Lin Jiufeng asked earnestly.
You have to accompany me to worship these statues first and pray for my granddaughter's well-being before I can tell you. The old granny chuckled.
How long will it take? Lin Jiufeng asked. It won't take too long.
I am only going to worship the statues of the young girls and babies in the temple, the old granny replied. Lin Jiufeng couldn't help but raise his head to look at the divine temple that was like a tall mountain. He swept his gaze at the statues along the way and the winding stairs that resembled the image of an enormous dragon. He was rendered speechless as he looked at the old granny. The old granny said with a smile. Let's go, young man. Okay, big sister, Lin Jiufeng replied rather quickly.
What did you just say? The old granny asked curiously. It's nothing. Let's hurry up and pay your respects to the statues.
Lin Jiufeng squeezed out a smile and casually brought the conversation to its end. The old granny started to climb. She was quite agile. This can also be attributed to the world's recovery of its spiritual energy. If it was in the past, she would either be lying in a coffin or bedridden. The old granny continuously worshipped statues one after another. She was very pious. After paying her respects for each statue, she even told Lin Jiufeng what deeds that statue did to be placed in the temple. She was very familiar with them. The granny explained the various deeds of the statues in detail. Lin Jiufeng and the white cat followed and listened silently. The worship continued from morning to noon. Finally, they arrived at the summit. The old granny panted a few times and sat on the steps of the mountain peak. Looking down, the clouds were thousands of miles long and the mountains were stacked one after another. Sometimes the clouds were calm and sometimes they surged with strength and ferocity. Nevertheless, nature's fickleness looked very beautiful. Lin Jiufeng also sat down and said, "Now that the worship is over, your granddaughter will definitely be protected." The old granny said, "That lass is very stubborn. She's just a girl, yet she wants to pursue some kind of supreme martial arts peak. If you want to ask about the Northern Mountains Lord, then that lass is the one you should talk to." Lin Jiufeng looked at the old granny. "That lass went to the ancestral land of the Northern Mountains race and received the inheritance of someone called the Northern Mountains Lord. But no one from the Northern Mountains race knew about this so-called Northern Mountains Lord. Everyone said that she was deceived. But she firmly believed in this Northern Mountains Lord. Instead of giving up on the inheritance, she ran to the Sea of Clouds and lived in seclusion to cultivate. She always comes back to visit me a few times every year. But she would always directly leave after eating," the old granny said sadly. The white cat whispered in Lin Jiufeng's ear. "Ask your big sister as to where this Sea of Clouds is." Lin Jiufeng rolled his eyes at the white cat and asked, "Big sister? Bah! Old lady, where's this Sea of Clouds?" The white cat sniggered on Lin Jiufeng's shoulder. "The white clouds that you just saw are the Sea of Clouds. If not, then why would I bring you up here to the peak? Why would I drag you along? For what? To look at the scenery? Or should I really let you worship these statues for my granddaughter?" The old granny stretched out her hand and pointed. She came to pray for her granddaughter's well-being, but at the same time, she wanted to see her. Among the mountains and valleys, the white clouds looked beautiful and serene. Clumped together, they formed a sea of clouds. This big sister's granddaughter must have a high cultivation base considering how she can cultivate in seclusion among the sea of clouds. Lin Jiufeng whispered to the white cat. "You bet," the white cat nodded. Before Lin Jiufeng could move, the old granny asked, "Young man, I've told you about the Northern Mountains Lord. Are you capable enough to go to the Sea of Clouds?" Lin Jiufeng looked at the old granny and smiled confidently. He didn't say anything. He just stepped out and stood in the air. Then, the clouds froze and supported Lin Jiufeng. Just like that, he walked through the Sea of Clouds step by step. The Sea of Clouds built a bridge for him. Lin Jiufeng walked into the depths of the Sea of Clouds and saw a house constructed from clouds. In front of the house stood a young girl. The young girl was very beautiful. Her skin was as fair as snow, and her long hair fluttered in the wind. Seeing her, the white cat immediately narrowed her eyes. "I saw my grandmother talking to you just now," the young girl said with a quiet and beautiful temperament. "I forgot to ask your grandmother, what's your name?" Lin Jiufeng asked with a smile. "Cloud, I know your origins," Cloud said. "You know?" Lin Jiufeng raised his brows in surprise. "You came for the Northern Mountains Lord. I sensed a hint of the Northern Mountains Lord's aura just now." Cloud reached out and pointed. "And it came from you." Lin Jiufeng looked at his own body and knew that it was because of the Northern Mountains Sutra. "Can you tell me more about Northern Mountains Lord?" Lin Jiufeng asked. As he asked, he observed her cultivation base. Surprisingly, Cloud was actually at the Boundless Realm. And she was just the old granny's granddaughter. Even if the old granny was 16 years old when she got married and had a child. Then, her first child was a girl, and this daughter also got married and had a child when she was 16 years old. Let us say that the old granny married when she was 16 years old and had a child. Then, her first child was a girl who also married and gave birth to her own child at age 16. Two 16-year-olds added together were 32 years old.
In addition, pregnancy lasted for 10 months.
If both didn't encounter any problem in their pregnancies, then the resulting number would be 35 years.
As a result, no matter how old Cloud was, she must only be at the age of 60 to 70 years old, right? A 60 to 70-year-old Boundless Realm expert?
Lin Jiufeng was also at the Boundless Realm.
Was she the true chosen one of this brand new era?
There's no need to be surprised by my cultivation base.
Cloud also guessed Lin Jiufeng's thoughts. She explained calmly.
The reason why I have such a cultivation base is also because of Northern Mountain's Lord's inheritance. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to reach this realm with my own strength.
Lin Jiufeng wasn't surprised anymore.
The entire thing became more acceptable upon hearing her explanation.
Who exactly is the Northern Mountain's Lord? Lin Jiufeng asked curiously.
The Northern Mountain's Lord is the ancestor of those Taoist priests.
Cloud reached out and pointed.
The 4 Tao sects hidden beneath the Sea of Clouds and their priests outside the ancient city were pointed out by her.
You're saying that the Northern Mountain's Lord is the ancestor of the 4 great traditional Tao sects?
Lin Jiufeng raised his brows.
He was shocked. That's right.
In the Central Plains, the Northern Mountain's Lord is known as the ancestor of the Great Tao, the ancestor who founded the 4 great traditional Tao sections. But here, he's known as the Northern Mountain's Lord.
Cloud nodded. Chapter 169, For Symbols Purgatory Array. The Northern Mountain's Lord was the ancestor of the Tao sects? Or rather, he was the ancestors of the 4 great traditional Tao sects? If that's the case, then why is the Northern Mountain's Lord's name virtually unknown in the outside world? Lin Jiufeng asked curiously.
There's no need for the people of the world to know about the Northern Mountain's Lord. They only need to know about the ancestor of the Great Tao and the 4 great traditional Tao sects that he established. The Northern Mountain's Lord belongs to the Northern Mountain's race, but the ancestor of the Great Tao belongs to the whole world, Cloud said.
Can you explain more about these things to me in detail? Lin Jiufeng asked. You have to do me a favor then.
Cloud smiled sweetly at Lin Jiufeng.
Lin Jiufeng's expression wavered.
This smile of hers was very clean and beautiful.
Meow. The white cat called out lazily.
She spread her claws and observed seriously.
Lin Jiufeng asked, What is it?
I want you to resolve the crisis of the Northern Mountains race.
Those Taoist priests are eyeing us covetously, wanting to obtain the relic of their ancestor.
They have already gone crazy from killing each other. There's no way I can stop them at this point, Cloud said solemnly. At first, she also wanted to stop them. But now, there were more than 10 Boundless Realms experts down below. Each sect had at least 2, at most 3. Their auras were so ferocious that she knew in an instant that she wouldn't be able to deal with them alone. Once they really started fighting, both the Northern Mountains ancient city and the Northern Mountains race would suffer a great catastrophe.
How are you so sure that I can help you? Lin Jiufeng asked. I can't see through you.
You are very powerful, at least stronger than me.
In this world, there aren't many people who are stronger than me. Each one of them is an extremely powerful existence. Cloud explained. That makes sense.
Lin Jiufeng nodded, nodding at her wit.
Then do you agree?
Cloud's eyes lit up as she asked. Tell me the story behind the Northern Mountains Lord and the ancestor of the Tao sects. I want to hear all of it. Lin Jiufeng sat down in the sea of clouds. White cloud condensed behind him and turned into a chair that supported his weight. The white cat immediately jumped from Lin Jiufeng's shoulder to his thigh. She stared at Cloud with an unfriendly gaze. Cats were very territorial. She was now guarding her territory.
Cloud didn't care about the white cat.
She walked slowly in the cloud and began to tell Lin Jiufeng what he wanted to hear. The Northern Mountains Lord isn't from the Central Plains. It's wrong for the Tao sects to say that their ancestor is from the Central Plains. The Northern Mountains Lord was already a member of the Northern Mountains race when he was young. He was born here several epochs ago. At that time, there was no Tao sect in the world just yet.
But back then, the Northern Mountains race already existed.
In contrast to the Northern Mountains race current standing in this brand new era, the Northern Mountains race back then was very powerful. The dynasty they had created, the Northern Mountains dynasty, had practically unified the world under its banner. It was essentially invincible. But as the Northern Mountains Lord grew up, he gathered hundreds of techniques and manuals from hundreds of sects and clans. Together with studying the principles of the sages and inheriting the Tao techniques of his predecessors, he established the path of the great Tao among the path of the immortals. Cloud explained with a solemn look on her face.
That was a long time ago.
Everyone still cultivated the techniques created by immortals back then. But the Northern Mountains Lord believed that their techniques were flawed. He believed that this world should be filled with myriads of flowers blooming at the same time.
Thus, he established the path of the great Tao.
Using the teachings of the predecessors, he carved open a path for the future generations. Northern Mountains Lord took in only 4 disciples in his life. When he was old and weak, he passed down the sect he created to his disciples. He chose to bid farewell to them and return to the Northern Mountains ancient city where he was born and raised.
He left his legacy here and then disappeared. Some said that he ascended.
Some said that he died of old age. While some said that he went to suppress the demonic creatures all over the world.
But ultimately, no one knew where he went.
The people of the Northern Mountains race never came to know about the Northern Mountains Lord due to his disappearance. They only know about his other identity as the ancestor of the great Tao.
Cloud talked tirelessly and explained in detail.
She slowly walked around Lin Jiufeng's chair. She explained the connection of the Northern Mountains Lord to the ancestor of the great Tao.
The Northern Mountains Lord, or rather, the ancestor of the great Tao, where is the relic and legacy that he left behind? Lin Jiufeng asked.
He was more concerned about this. After all, the 4 great traditional Tao sects were competing for it.
Look over there.
Cloud reached out and pointed behind Lin Jiufeng.
Lin Jiufeng looked in the direction that she pointed.
She was pointing at the divine temple of the Northern Mountains race.
The temple is the relic left behind by the Northern Mountains Lord?
Lin Jiufeng raised his brows.
It's beneath the divine temple.
Inside is the manual that contains all of his knowledge and wisdom, the Northern Mountains Sutra.
Cloud said solemnly.
The Northern Mountains Sutra is a peerless cultivation technique that can help anyone achieve the immortal realm. A hint of desire appeared on Cloud's face as she said these words.
Lin Jiufeng's expression became strange. A manual that contained all of his knowledge and wisdom that could help anyone reach the immortal realm? It was the Northern Mountains Sutra? He already has it.
The Northern Mountains Sutra also has another name, the Taoist scripture.
The Taoist scripture is the general outline of the ultimate Tao techniques.
It also has all of the Northern Mountains Lord's cultivation techniques in its records.
Cloud further explained.
How come the people of the Northern Mountains race had no idea as to who the Northern Mountains Lord is?
Lin Jiufeng asked.
Because when the Northern Mountains Lord returned to the Northern Mountains race, he lived in seclusion. No one knew that the glorious ancestor of the great Tao outside was actually a slovenly old man in the Northern Mountains race.
Cloud explained.
In fact, even she only came to know about these things after obtaining the Northern Mountains Lord's legacy.
It was also because of the legacy that she knew why the 4 Tao sects were trying to surround the ancient city. When will the ancestral ruins be opened and the relic be accessed?
Lin Jiufeng curiously looked at the divine temple.
I can open it whenever I want to. But to be honest, it's also my fault that these Tao sects sensed the Northern Mountains Lord's legacy.
It's all because I opened its seal at the divine temple. But if it weren't for the fact that I was continuously suppressing the ancestral ruins from above, the relic inside of it would have long appeared. If that happened, then the Northern Mountains race would have surely experienced a disaster long ago.
Cloud looked gloomy when she said all of these. Are you trying to say that we can't take the relic outside? Lin Jiufeng asked. Yes. But now, I feel that it's becoming more and more difficult to suppress it.
The traces of activity beneath the divine temple are slowly getting stronger.
The people from the Tao sects are also deliberately helping it break its suppression.
In addition, even the relic itself, the Northern Mountain Sutra, also wants to come into being.
Cloud explained with difficulty. I have a solution,
Lin Jiufeng said firmly.
Really?
Cloud looked at Lin Jiufeng in surprise, her eyes filled with joy.
Lin Jiufeng couldn't help but take another look at the girl's look of surprise. Meow.
The white cat purred.
Her grandmother is your big sister.
The white cat sent a voice transmission to Lin Jiufeng.
Lin Jiufeng sweated.
He only took a glance at her, that's all. Bring me to that place beneath the divine temple.
I will go there and set up an array formation.
Lin Jiufeng stood up and said solemnly. He looked straight ahead at the temple without looking at Cloud.
What array formation are you going to set? Cloud asked curiously.
The 4 symbols purgatory array,
Lin Jiufeng said.
He previously received this 4 symbols purgatory array in the land of extreme negative energy beneath the cold palace. Since then, he never had the opportunity to use it. But today, he finally found a reason to do so.
With a flip of his palm, a formation blueprint and 4 statues appeared in Lin Jiufeng's hand.
The 4 symbols represented the vermilion bird, the azure dragon, the black tortoise, and the white tiger.
Once the 4 statues were activated in tandem with the formation blueprint, a huge array formation would stir into action. This array isn't just to suppress the Northern Mountains Lord's relic.
It will also teach those people from the 4 great traditional Tao sects a lesson that they will never forget.
Lin Jiufeng sneered. He could already imagine what was about to happen. Chapter 170, Welcome.
Lin Jiufeng and Cloud soon arrived at the Divine Temple.
The core area of the Divine Temple was not open to outsiders.
It was protected by the people of the Northern Mountains race. But when Lin Jiufeng and Cloud entered, no member of the Northern Mountains race noticed them.
The members of the Northern Mountains race haven't adapted just yet in this brand new era.
Despite it already being decades into the world's spiritual energy recovery, their strength remains stagnant. Or rather, ever since the Northern Mountains race unified the world and established the golden age of that era, they snowballed into decline, Cloud regretfully said. She was from the Northern Mountains race, so she naturally hoped that the Northern Mountains race would become stronger. But in reality, the Northern Mountains race had always been like this, stagnant and mediocre. But at the same time, this was also the reason why the Northern Mountains race was able to preserve themselves for several eras and continue to exist for so long, similar to those powerful sects and factions. Everything that happened to the Northern Mountains race can be considered as both a curse and a blessing, Lin Jiufeng muttered.
Beneath this divine temple is the Northern Mountains Lord's relic.
I've been suppressing it all this time, but the seal has already loosened after so long. Cloud reached out and pointed at a place beneath the divine temple. Lin Jiufeng focused his gaze. With his powerful eyes, he saw through the soil, the divine temple, and saw the Taiji symbol-like building beneath.
It was black and white, with yin and yang swirling around it. There was also Taoist true qi surrounding it.
The entire building seemed to be floating and sinking as if it was breathing. Indeed, it seems to be anxious about coming into being, Lin Jiufeng commented. Just by looking at it, he could already feel the immense strength of the true qi that it emanated in all directions. Fortunately, Cloud was suppressing it. Otherwise, it would have long erupted. As you can see, I had no other choice but to ask you for a favor to come and help me seal this place.
Once it comes into being, the commotion it will create will incite competition between the Tao sects.
The Northern Mountains race cannot afford to bear them duke it out in an all-out war. Especially since the location of the Divine Temple is too awkward, it's right at the middle where most members of the Northern Mountains race are concentrated, Cloud explained.
I understand. I will help you with this matter. Lin Jiufeng nodded. Disperse the people around the Divine Temple first.
When I set up the array formation to suppress this place later, those people from the Tao sects will definitely rush in and a huge battle will break out. It won't be good if the common people are hurt, Lin Jiufeng said. Alright, I'll handle it in 2 hours, Cloud said decisively. She would look for the higher-ups of the Northern Mountains race and ask them to evacuate the surrounding people. Lin Jiufeng leisurely strolled around the Divine Temple. looking at this part of the divine temple that strictly prohibited outsiders from entering.
Just what was in this place aside from this building that made it unique from the outside? Actually, they were all the same. It was just that the so-called ancestral ruins were beneath the soil here.
Although the people of the Northern Mountains race didn't know, they could feel the earth breathing and the ground trembling on this place as if there was a terrifying existence below that was about to come into being. Since that was the case, they knew better than to have the common people freely venture here. Hence, they sealed the place and didn't allow anyone to enter.
Little cat, go and watch from the side. I'll set up the array formation now.
Lin Jiufeng waited for an hour and drove the white cat away as he said, "Be careful." The white cat was very obedient. She knew that she wasn't of much help to Lin Jiufeng, so she came to a decision that not causing trouble for him was her greatest contribution.
The white cat jumped outside and watched from afar.
Lin Jiufeng took out the 4 statues: Vermilion Bird, White Tiger, Azure Dragon, and Black Tortoise. The 4 statues looked small, but they were divine items with souls. The person who created this array formation spent a huge amount of resources to create the 4 statues. They were fused with the blood essences of the 4 divine beasts. Once they are activated, they will be able to reproduce the might of the 4 divine beasts. Lin Jiufeng reached out and rubbed the 4 statues.
He walked to a corner and left one behind. He walked to another corner and left one behind.
In this manner, in each of the 4 corners, there was a statue.
The 4 divine beasts in 4 directions would be able to completely display their might. Lastly, Lin Jiufeng took out the array formation blueprint and held it in his hand.
He then stood there, waiting for the Northern Mountains race to evacuate the people nearby.
Fortunately, Cloud moved fast.
With her powerful cultivation base as leverage, she told the higher-ups of the Northern Mountains race that they had to evacuate the people around the Divine Temple.
Otherwise, a catastrophe would occur.
The people of the Northern Mountains race quickly retreated. With the Divine Temple as the center, the land within tens of miles became empty. Just like a ghost city, there was nothing around the Divine Temple.
There wasn't even a dog. Even the white cat followed them and evacuated. She ran tens of miles away and watched from afar.
Seeing this, Lin Jiufeng directly tossed the array formation blueprint and directly injected all of his true qi into it.
Boom! A deafening sound rang out.
Accompanied by a surging aura, the array formation blueprint inside the temple was directly activated. Its might seeped into the relic.
Amidst the rumbling auras, the roars of a dragon, a tiger, a phoenix, and a black tortoise could be heard. Roar! Roar! Roar!
The roars shook the surroundings. The true bodies of the 4 divine beasts appeared one after another. The azure dragon's body was huge. It flew into the air before landing. Its claws smashed onto the ground of the divine temple.
Rumble! The ground trembled.
The already fragile seal completely collapsed at this moment. The Northern Mountains Lord's relic and legacy in the ancestral ruins were about to come into being. But the 4 symbols purgatory array immediately suppressed it.
The azure dragon's attack struck the relic, knocking it back down.
Then, the white tiger roared and shook the mountains and rivers.
It also came pressing down with all its might.
The vermilion bird's cry reverberated through the universe as its powerful strength collided against the relic. The black tortoise smashed down with its claws. The thick earth directly pervaded the relic. After its claws struck, it directly suppressed the relic.
The relic froze, unable to move. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. The changes were so fast that the members of the Dao sects outside the ancient city couldn't react.
They wore surprised looks on their faces.
What happened in the city? A Taoist priest asked curiously. No idea. Are they being attacked by demonic creatures? Those demonic creatures have nothing to do with us.
The people of the Northern Mountains race should handle them on their own. We just have to wait for the appearance of the ancestral ruins, and from there, we can obtain the Taoist scripture.
That's right. The Taoist scripture is something that can directly produce immortals. We must obtain it at all costs. The people from the Dao sects discussed as they watched from afar.
But at this moment, the higher-ups of the Quanjin sect, Mount Longhu, the Five Rice Dao sect, and the Zenith Heaven Path sect exclaimed,
"Not good."
Their cries of alarm came all of a sudden, scaring a few of their disciples, who then looked at them in confusion.
What was not good? A disciple wanted to ask.
But before he could ask, the top powerhouses of the four Dao sects rushed into the northern mountains' ancient city like a swarm of locusts.
The aura of the ancestral ruins disappeared? How is that possible? That aura was still so dense and intense just now. It seemed like it would erupt at any moment to come into being in the mortal realm. How could it suddenly disappear?
Something happened with the relic of our ancestor in the ancestral ruins. At this moment, the higher-ups of the Dao sects no longer cared about being on guard against each other.
They swarmed into the ancient city.
But what they saw when they arrived were the four divine beasts: Azure Dragon, Vermilion Bird, White Tiger, and Black Tortoise.
The four divine beasts looked at them covetously, their terrifying auras surged with the intent to fight. Behind the four divine beasts stood a hazy-looking man. He chuckled. "You lot are finally here. I've waited for you lot for a long time.
Have a taste of the feast that I've prepared for you all." As soon as his words fell, Lin Jiufeng waved his hand. The four divine beasts roared together and rushed forward at once. Protected by the array formation, the mysterious-looking Lin Jiufeng said softly, "Welcome."
Chapter 171, The Powerful Lin Jiufeng Roar.
The Azure Dragon roared toward the sky as it spat out dragon flames that directly smashed towards the visitors' faces. The Taoist priests who rushed in were shocked. When they saw the Azure Dragon, they looked as if they had seen a ghost.
That's a divine beast, right? A true dragon? Is it really a true dragon? Aren't true dragons extinct in our era?
Why did this Azure Dragon attack us for no reason?
The higher-ups of the four Taoist sects shouted angrily. They were furious and annoyed. A Taoist priest of the boundless realm took a step forward. A domain appeared around him.
His domain directly covered the sky and blocked the dragon flames. But in the very next moment, the Azure Dragon's dragon claw smashed down.
Boom! The Taoist priest's body trembled.
His domain quivered along with his body. Fortunately, it didn't shatter, but the impact still made him vomit blood.
What? The boundless realm Taoist priest looked at the Azure Dragon in fury. Let's attack it together. This Azure Dragon's strength isn't that strong. The boundless realm expert of another sect solemnly suggested.
At this moment, they temporarily put aside their grudges. They wanted to let the relic break out of its seal. Hence, the people from the four great traditional Dao sects wanted to join forces to defeat Lin Jiufeng. But before they could even join forces, the White Tiger directly rushed out of the array formation. It soared into the sky towards them as it moved at breakneck speeds. Its teeth were very sharp and its claws were terrifyingly powerful as it pounced over at them.
The Azure Dragon and the White Tiger.
The Dao sect's members were shocked by the might of the White Tiger. As soon as it came out of the array formation, it directly charged over at them. A perfected one from one of the Taoist sects stepped out and activated his domain to resist the White Tiger with all his might. But the Vermilion Bird followed closely behind. It roared toward the sky. Its body was powerful, and it landed down with its powerful flames. The surrounding area immediately became a sea of flames. Fortunately, the common people in the area had already made their retreat in advance.
Otherwise, most of them would be dead by now.
The Azure Dragon, the Vermilion Bird, and the White Tiger, a boundless realm cultivator, stepped out to resist the Vermilion Bird. Using his own domain, he swallowed the sea of fire and forced it to burn inside his domain. He endured the pain and mumbled,
"It's good that the Black Tortoise isn't here. If not, then we would be facing the four divine beasts all at once." Dawn.
As soon as his words fell, a black tortoise as big as a small mountain walked out of the array formation.
The Black Tortoise appeared. Its claw descended. The air itself ruptured as the claw moved through the air. Space itself froze when the claw landed. Even boundless realm experts found it difficult to walk.
They felt as if the world's gravity had increased by hundreds or thousands of times. The people of the Dao sects tried their best to hold on. Another boundless realm cultivator stood out. He gritted his teeth and decided to endure the brunt of the black tortoise's attack as he soared toward the sky. So what if they are the four great divine beasts? They are all illusions. They are illusions born from this array formation. If we kill the person operating this array formation, these beasts will disappear. We must find and kill him. This time, it was the boundless realm powerhouse from the Xuanhuang sect who shouted. The four great traditional Dao sects all had boundless realms experts to fight against the divine beasts. As the battle continued, the experts found out that these four divine beasts weren't that strong compared to what they had initially expected. This revelation greatly boosted the morale of the four great traditional Dao sects. There's someone behind that array formation. He must be the mastermind. We must go in and kill him. A boundless realm cultivator from the Xuanhuang sect shouted. Let me handle it. A Taoist priest rushed out from the Xuanhuang sect. He was holding his sword in his hand. Every attack from his sword was filled with sharp killing intent. He rushed into the array formation and drew his sword, wanting to kill Lin Jiufeng. Lin Jiufeng didn't even look at him. He just moved his fingers. Pooh! A sharp sword energy directly penetrated this powerhouse of the Xuanhuang sect. The sword penetrated his glabella. Not only that, but the sword energy's momentum also destroyed the Taoist priest's divine soul. Despite all of that, the sword energy still had its momentum as its powerful force directly carried the fallen Taoist priest away from the array formation. The corpse crashed heavily onto the ground. This Taoist priest returned as fast as he went in. Moreover, his death seemed to be very peaceful. He didn't seem to have suffered an injury that directly caused his death. In fact, he didn't even realize that he was already dead. He still had that look of excitement on his face before he ventured into the array formation. The members of the Dao sects were shocked. That's Taoist priest Conway from the Xuanhuang sect. He's half-step into the boundless realm. Even an expert half-step into the boundless realm failed? The mastermind behind all of these must be at the boundless realm. Let's send 2 people inside this time. Let's see who this mastermind is. The people from the Zenith Heaven Path sect coldly snorted. Their Zenith Heaven Path sect had 3 boundless realm experts. One of them was blocking the vermilion bird, and the other 2 flew together into the array formation. Their goal was, of course, to kill Lin Jiufeng. Once Lin Jiufeng died, the array formation would deactivate. The 4 divine beasts would completely disappear without a trace. The 2 boundless realms rushed over together. Their auras were boundless, and they were both from the Zenith Heaven Path sect. Their minds were connected. Furthermore, their high degree of coordination was surely enough to threaten anyone. But Lin Jiufeng remained calm. These 2 boundless realm experts weren't that powerful in his eyes. They had just recently entered the boundless realm. Compared to Lin Jiufeng, the difference between them wasn't trivial. They rushed over aggressively as they executed their cultivation techniques. A powerful Dao ancestor phantom condensed and came boring down. A sword came from the west, slashing through the clouds to kill Lin Jiufeng. In the eyes of the common people, these 2 people were definitely powerful. But in front of Lin Jiufeng, they weren't worth mentioning at all. Lin Jiufeng only moved and flicked his finger. Everything came to an end. A sword light, with an aura that seemed incredibly familiar to the Taoist priests, burst out. Lin Jiufeng used the Northern Mountains Sutra. It was the Taoist scripture that the Taoist priests yearned for all their lives. At this moment, a sword technique recorded in the Northern Mountains Sutra revealed its might as it rushed over toward the 2 Taoist priests. Boom! In the next second, the 2 great boundless realm experts were sent flying. A sword energy directly cut off a part of their body, though the part that was cut off was different between the 2 of them. 1 hand and 1 leg. The limbs of 2 great boundless realm experts were severed by Lin Jiufeng. And as if they were struck by lightning, Lin Jiufeng's terrifying aura alone forced them out of the array formation. Similar to the one that died just now, they came out as fast as they went in.
Two boundless realm experts of the Zenith Heaven Path sect rushed in and were then instantly defeated.
One of them had his arm sliced off, and the other had his leg from the thigh down cut off.
You? Who exactly are you?
This time, the surrounding Taoist priests could not remain calm any longer. But some of them managed to retain their rationality as they immediately questioned after recovering from their surprise.
Who I am isn't important, Lin Jiufeng shook his head. Then why are you stopping us from doing what we want?
A Taoist priest was indignant.
Everything here belongs to the Northern Mountains race, not to anyone else, Lin Jiufeng replied from the fog. The Northern Mountains race will surely not be able to protect such a relic. Isn't it only reasonable for us to take it away so they can be spared from the trouble? Also, what you are taking away from us is a relic from our Tao sect's founder. How could it not belong to us? Another Taoist priest chimed in. It's something that belonged to your ancestor.
You're right. Before Lin Jiufeng could finish speaking, however, a Taoist priest said loudly, You think it's reasonable too, right?
You must help us then. Take this formation away and open the seal.
We both know there are many treasures inside.
You lot may want this relic, but I've already sealed it. Only after 100 years will you lot have a chance to unseal it again.
Lin Jiufeng added coldly. In other words, Lin Jiufeng was trying to postpone the relic's emergence into the world for 100 years.
What? How dare you? That's something that our ancestor left for us, yet you've sealed it? Says who? Young man, you have just turned us, the four great traditional Tao sects, into your enemies.
Chapter 172, Lin Jiufeng. A kind-hearted commoner. Lin Jiufeng's words infuriated the people from the four great traditional Tao sects. If it weren't for the fact that Lin Jiufeng had just defeated two boundless realm powerhouses from the Zenith Heaven Path sect, they would have already surrounded Lin Jiufeng and turned him into ashes.
To these people, Lin Jiufeng's words and actions were an insult.
For the sake of their founding ancestors' relic, the four great traditional Tao sects had shed all pretense of cordiality and started a massacre against each other. But today, someone arrived all of a sudden and told them that he was delaying the emergence of the relic that they were trying so hard to obtain for 100 years? Was he joking? They glared at Lin Jiufeng. Immediately afterwards, they unanimously released their hatred toward Lin Jiufeng. In the array formation of the four symbols purgatory array, thick fog rolled and covered everything. Lin Jiufeng's figure was faintly discernible inside, but his face seemed to be surrounded by a mist. Lin Jiufeng faced the four great traditional Tao sects on his own. He declared, Go back to where you came from. I am sealing this relic once again. A clown who only hides in the dark, who doesn't even dare to show his face, actually dares to be so arrogant? You are indeed powerful, but your strength is only because of this array formation, right? The four symbols, in other words, the foundation of this array formation of yours, is already in our hands. As long as we break this formation of yours, you will die without a proper burial.
Oh, come on.
You just want to take that relic for yourself, am I right? To think that you can even sound so righteous despite being so arrogant and shameless. Waiting for 100 more years is impossible for us, it would be too late by then. That is the relic of our Tao sect's ancestor. An outsider like you shan't interfere. That's right. We advise you to surrender. The four symbols which serve as the foundation of this formation of yours are already in our hands. The powerhouses from the four major Tao sects spoke one after another. Each one of them wore ferocious looks on their faces. They looked at the four statues that were currently being held captive by four boundless realm experts. Their confidence rose exponentially, thinking that Lin Jiufeng was only powerful because of the array formation. In the current stage of the world's spiritual energy recovery, the people from the Tao sects didn't believe that anyone could surpass their cultivation bases in the boundless realm. It was simply unimaginable for them. Therefore, it must only because of the array formation that Lin Jiufeng was able to defeat one of them. After Lin Jiufeng heard their words, the corner of his mouth curled up. In the array formation and within the thick fog, he said softly, Do you lot really think that this array formation is that easy to subdue? Lin Jiufeng found it interesting. The four symbols purgatory array was something that he received from signing in at the land of extreme negative energy. It was an understatement to say that it was extremely powerful. It had displayed a mere fraction of its power just now. Humph. We are already suppressing these four symbols of yours. What's the use of being so stubborn? A powerhouse from one of the Dao sects coldly rebuked. A domain materialized behind him and pressed down. It suppressed the black tortoise. The black tortoise stood motionless. The powerhouse looked on proudly. What bullshit T4 symbols purgatory array? The name might be imposing, but it's only this strong? But he didn't notice that a trace of ridicule appeared in the black tortoise's eyes. In the four symbols purgatory array, Lin Jiufeng looked at the Dao sect powerhouse and smiled slightly. Since you are that confident, let's see if you can handle the true might of the four symbols purgatory array. Boom! As soon as Lin Jiufeng's words fell, a tremendous force rushed out of the formation. The force that suppressed the relic of the Northern Mountains Lord appeared. The true might of the four symbols purgatory array was finally revealed at this moment. Its vast energy surged, rolled, and dived into the black tortoise's body. Boom! 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 Ferocity flashed in the black tortoise's eyes. Its huge body suddenly raised and directly lifted the domain that was pressing down on it. Then, it bit down and its sharp teeth pierced through the domain of the Dao sect powerhouse. It pulled and ruthlessly tore the domain apart. The domain of the Dao sect powerhouse was instantly torn apart. He let out a cry of surprise and anger as he retreated in a hurry. He reached out and struck decisively. His attack smashed against the black tortoise's body with a bang. But the black tortoise didn't care at all. Its huge mouth bit down on the Dao sect powerhouse's arm, then it directly tore the arm apart. Clack! An arm was torn off. The pain made the Dao sect powerhouse scream. His expression distorted as he continued his frantic retreat. But how could the black tortoise let him escape? The energy in its body shook and radiated in all directions. The space around the black tortoise immediately became akin to that of a quagmire. The Dao sect powerhouse couldn't escape even if he wanted to. It was like he was deep in the mud. He became as slow as a turtle. He could only watch as the black tortoise approached and bit down with its bloody mouth. Boom! His head was directly bitten off. His divine soul wanted to escape, but he couldn't even do so. His divine soul was directly devoured by the black tortoise. The black tortoise let out a roar. It raised its head and glared. The true might of a divine beast demanded worship from its surroundings. Roar! A roar reverberated throughout the ancient city. Many people looked at the black tortoise's huge body in horror. And at this moment, the trapped azure dragon, vermilion bird, and white tiger all displayed their true might. They broke free and crushed the Dao sect's powerhouses with their powerful strength. The azure dragon swam in the air. A roar was immediately followed by a scorching dragon flame that fell like rain. Boom! A Taoist priest who had just recently entered the boundless realm directly exploded. His divine soul was annihilated in the blink of an eye. The azure dragon toward the air. Its huge body occupied half of the sky above the divine temple. The vermilion bird was the same. It pounced at breakneck speeds. With a cry and a gust of wind, a Taoist priest's life ended right there and then. The white tiger was the cruelest against its enemies. It pounced into the group of Taoist priests and like a wolf in a sheep's den. Its wild nature erupted. It directly bit to death anyone that it saw. Those grazed by its claws either died in an instant or suffered grievous injuries. At this moment, the four symbols purgatory array showed its true might to the world. The members of the four great traditional Dao sects were terrified. They made a frantic retreat to avoid these four divine beasts. But the four divine beasts refused to let them off. They were furious and wanted to kill. When the members of the four great traditional Dao sects were finally out of the ancient city, it was only when they were far away did the four divine beasts calm down. They stood in the four cardinal directions and simultaneously let out deafening roars. Then, They turned into stone statues that protected the four directions of the Northern Mountains' ancient city. Of course, this included the Northern Mountains' Lord's relic. From now on, no one was allowed to make trouble in the ancient city, especially in the divine temple. If a fool dared to do so, then the four divine beasts would gladly take their lives. When the four Taoist sects saw the scene, they gritted their teeth, their hearts bleeding. The relic of the Tao sect's ancestor. The Taoist scripture that the Tao sects wanted to obtain for so many generations. The secrets to the immortal realm. They were now unattainable. Just a few hours earlier, the four great traditional Tao sects surrounded the ancient city and even tried to stop each other from entering and taking the first dibs. But now, they didn't even dare to enter anymore. What happened in a span of 2 hours was simply a nightmare for these Tao sects. The four symbols purgatory array was like a ghost that caught them off guard. Lin Jiufeng, who was in the array formation, didn't even make a move on his own. The four statues alone forced them into submission. This relic will emerge into the world in 100 years. Those from the Tao sects are not allowed to act presumptuously in the Northern Mountains' ancient city. Lin Jiufeng's cold voice reverberated in the surroundings and also throughout the world. The people from the Tao sects watched and listened in silence. They felt wronged, but they couldn't do anything at all. Who exactly are you? A Taoist perfected one gritted his teeth and asked. I'm just a kind-hearted commoner. Lin Jiufeng replied. He was truly kind-hearted. He didn't want to see people of the Northern Mountains race suffer, so he decided to help. He originally had nothing to do with this matter at all. Hence, he described himself as a kind-hearted commoner by helping. But would these people from the Tao sects believe him? Of course, they didn't. All of them wore strange expressions on their faces. Are you trying to deceive children here? Chapter 173, Emperor De fell sick. The members of the four great traditional Tao sects looked at the Northern Mountains' ancient city, then at the four statues that stood tall and upright. They were silent. The four symbols purgatory array were opposing them along with a mysterious and kind-hearted commoner. Under Lin Jiufeng's gaze, the people from the Tao sects retreated. No matter how unwilling they were, they had to leave. The members of the four great traditional Tao sects looked at each other. They were too downcast to talk about anything. As a result, they immediately took off and left. The internal strife between the four great traditional Tao sects directly broke the relationship between them. If they met again in the future, they would just be strangers to each other. It would already be considered polite to address the other party as fellow Taoist if they met once more. The people of the Northern Mountains race cheered, although they didn't know what actually happened. But it was obvious that the Northern Mountains race had forced the Tao sects away. The Northern Mountains race obviously won. Thus, they cheered. Cloud watched from afar with the white cat. She exclaimed. Amazing! He forced Tao sects away so easily. He's too powerful. Meow. The white cat called out lazily. Your grandmother is his big sister. He's old, so he's naturally very powerful. After all, he has cultivated for so many years. Cloud looked at the white cat but noticed that the white cat was ignoring her. The white cat quickly ran to Lin Jiufeng's side and called out sweetly. Lin Jiufeng squatted down and gently picked up the white cat and asked, Am I really powerful? You're strong enough to attract someone's admiration. The white cat lampooned. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm always hiding in the dark. How can I attract anyone's admiration? Lin Jiufeng rebuked as he carried the white cat out of the array formations range. Cloud was waiting outside the divine temple. When she saw Lin Jiufeng, her eyes lit up. She quickly chattered away in excitement. Senior is too powerful. You suppressed the four great traditional Tao sects on your own. That's simply incredible. Lin Jiufeng looked at the little white cat. The white cat blinked. It turned out that admiration he attracted was Cloud's admiration. Lin Jiufeng suppressed the waves in his heart and calmly replied, I only acted for the sake of the millions of people in the Northern Mountains race. The array formation here can be maintained for 100 years. Unless someone destroys it, it won't be a problem for this array formation to continuously suppress the Northern Mountains Lord's relic.
Cloud looked at Lin Jiufeng with a gentle smile. Senior, you saved the Northern Mountains race.
There is nothing that the Northern Mountains race can repay your kindness with.
But I'm willing to do anything for you.
The white cat's face darkened at these words.
She was actually being so blatant?
Lin Jiufeng was also shocked.
This girl was so proactive.
It's a pity that you are a girl. If you were a man, we would have already become sworn brothers. We would live and die together, never abandoning each other.
Lin Jiufeng was regretful. Cloud? The white cat looked at Lin Jiufeng in shock. How could he even say such words? The white cat's gaze immediately turned into an admiring one. All right.
Protect this array formation properly and it will serve you well for 100 years.
Lin Jiufeng added. It's time for me to leave. Until we meet again.
Cloud was still in a daze as she watched Lin Jiufeng leave.
It wasn't until Lin Jiufeng left that she realized that she still didn't know his name. Senior, what's your name? When can we meet again? Cloud hurriedly shouted.
Lin Jiufeng stopped in his tracks and turned to look at her. Then, he waved his hand and said with a smile.
When the spring flowers bloom next year, we shall meet again. Lin Jiufeng still didn't mention his name and origin.
He directly took his leave. He never really wanted to be involved with the Northern Mountains race. Of course, being involved with the Dao sect's internal strife was also an accident. Lin Jiufeng was still focused on his goal.
Cloud watched in silence.
She felt regretful in her heart.
Lin Jiufeng left the Northern Mountains race and the Northern Mountains ancient city.
Facing the spring breeze and the warm afternoon sun, Lin Jiufeng drove his carriage and continued towards the northern regions.
The white cat laid beside him. Thinking about Lin Jiufeng's words of rejection towards Cloud, she wanted to laugh.
She then realized that from now on, she would secretly be happy every time she remembered Cloud's expression after she was rejected by Lin Jiufeng.
What's wrong with you?
Lin Jiufeng looked at the white cat in doubt.
Why was she hiding at the side while trembling and smiling? I just remembered something funny. The white cat thought for a while before answering. Lin Jiufeng nodded.
A hint of desire appeared on his face as he said, now that we have resolved all of our problems here,
we can finally take a look at the scenery in the northern regions.
We can finally venture into the region whom scholars deem to be as beautiful as Jiangnan. He yearned for the scenery of different regions.
Will we encounter any trouble in the northern regions? The white cat asked. Let's cross that bridge when we get there. Lin Jiufeng was confident.
It was just like the internal strife of the Dao sects that he encountered along the way. He would deal with the problems as they appear.
How far are we from the northern regions? The white cat stood up and looked into the distance.
Lin Jiufeng replied, we're still quite far from the northern regions, but no worries. We can take this journey slow since the Unrivalled God Dynasty is already in good shape and in good hands.
Emperor Day is a very intelligent and wise man.
We don't have to worry about the dynasty with him at its helm.
Naturally, we
can take our time traveling over to the northern regions.
He wasn't in a hurry. To be honest, he could easily reach his destination if he wanted to. But then he would be unable to enjoy the scenery along the way.
Lin Jiufeng wanted to drive the carriage and look at the beautiful scenery, the sun, the moon, the mountains, and the rivers. Look at how the mountains were red and the forests were dyed red. Look at the verdant river and the struggle of the 100 barges. Look at the eagles soaring toward the sky and the fishes sinking to the bottom of the sea. Look at the myriad tribes competing for freedom. Of course, Lin Jiufeng also wanted to find places where he could sign in at. After leaving the Cold Palace and the imperial capital, there are only a handful of places where I was able to sign in at. In the past few days, other than signing in at Dalan Temple, the 10,000 Buddha Sacred Tower, and the Northern Mountains Ancient City, I didn't manage to sign in somewhere else. Lin Jiufeng thought silently. This can only mean that the sign-in opportunity will only appear if I was standing in a unique location, place, or if I was standing before a unique building or its entrances. Once I'm at the northern regions, I must explore some of its no-man's lands. Lin Jiufeng decided in his heart. The difficulty of finding places to sign in it made the land of extreme negative energy more precious in Lin Jiufeng's eyes. After all, when he was still in the Cold Palace, he could basically sign in every day. The Cold Palace was a good place to sign in. But ultimately, the land of extreme negative energy beneath the Cold Palace was better than it. When I have the chance, I should go back and take a look. I keep feeling that I haven't emptied out the sign-in opportunities in the land of extreme negative energy just yet. Lin Jiufeng frowned and pondered. When he left the Cold Palace and the land of extreme negative energy, there were still many tombs underneath. Lin Jiufeng signed in at one of them every day and received many valuable treasures and techniques. But he didn't touch any of those tombs themselves. He just left them there. The next time he returned, he had to take a look at what was inside those tombs. Lin Jiufeng made up his mind. Unrivalled God Dynasty, Imperial Capital. In the huge Imperial Capital, other than the area around the Cold Palace, the other places were bustling and full of life. The strength of the Unrivalled God Dynasty could no longer be underestimated. Even without Lin Jiufeng, it was still a force to be reckoned with. After all, Princess Yulin, the son of the Millennium Sword God, Monk Fusan, and the War Machine were within the confines of the Unrivalled God Dynasty. Each of them were powerful powerhouses in this brand new era. Especially the War Machine. As time passed, the spiritual energy in the world became richer and stronger. When it was at its previous peak, the War Machine could supposedly even fight against immortals. Emperor De has been worried sick about the internal strife between the four great traditional Dao sects these days. But after hearing that the Northern Mountains race had successfully repelled the Dao sect's forces, Emperor De immediately wanted to rope in the Northern Mountains race under his banner. He had just sent the messengers out to communicate with the Northern Mountains race when Emperor De fell sick. After falling sick, he couldn't get up anymore. Chapter 174, Ancient Dian Dynasty. Emperor De fell sick. The forbidden city of the Unrivalled God Dynasty was placed on lockdown. But despite the lockdown, the vast forbidden city remained brightly lit throughout the night. Contrary to the dazzling lights, however, the people inside kept walking in and out, their faces filled with dread. The servants and maids were so nervous that they didn't dare to speak. After completing their duties, they stood aside and trembled. They looked at the imperial physicians, divine physicians, Taoist masters, and eminent monks who were coming and going into the forbidden city. Each one of these servants couldn't help but gulp a mouthful of their own saliva. No one expected that Emperor De would suddenly fall sick. After all, he was in his prime and was at the human god realm. In addition, he had the best physicians under his banner. This was simply unexpected. Emperor De should have been healthy. Multiple physicians would check his body every day after all. Emperor De himself knew the importance of his body. His body didn't belong to him. It belonged to the Unrivalled God Dynasty. Emperor De wouldn't let any accident happen to himself. But now, an accident, something that he feared the most, happened. The court officials were shocked. A group of court officials squeezed in. Myriads of physicians were summoned to discuss possible solutions to Emperor De's illness. After Emperor De fell sick, the Unrivalled God Dynasty remained relatively stable. But this was all thanks to Princess Yulin's actions. She stabilized the situation and calmly issued subsequent orders. The Empress Dowager, the Empress, and the court officials all supported Princess Yulin. They wanted her to be Emperor De's temporary substitute in handling state affairs. She took it upon herself to stabilize the chaotic situation. Then, she sealed the news and gave a gag order. Anyone who dared to leak the news would be killed without mercy. On that night, dozens of scouts died in the Forbidden City. But the subsequent days afterward, people still died, albeit quietly every day. The dark net constructed by Emperor De displayed its might and found every spy or scout from enemy camps. It effectively prevented the news from spreading out of the Forbidden City. Therefore, the people of the Unrivalled God Dynasty remained unaware that their Emperor De was currently conscious due to an illness. They continued on with their daily lives, in ignorance and bliss.
Forbidden City, Great Council Hall. Princess Yulin wore a brave look. She asked solemnly, why exactly did Emperor De fall into a coma?
In front of her was a group of famous medical experts. They were the best physicians that the current era could offer. But all of them frowned and buried their heads in their thoughts upon hearing Princess Yulin's words.
Except for one. One physician stood up.
Princess Yulin and the court officials immediately looked at him.
Xuanhuang, what exactly happened to Emperor De?
The elderly cabinet chief asked solemnly as he supported himself with a walking stick. If it weren't for the recovery of the world's spiritual energy, he would have long resigned from his post and retired.
In reality, he wanted to retire, but Emperor De didn't allow him to do so. The latter reasoned that having an old minister in the court was the Unrivalled God Dynasty's blessing. It was only because of Emperor De's words that he didn't insist on resigning. Upon hearing that something happened to Emperor De, he immediately cooperated with Princess Yulin to stabilize the state affairs and placate the court officials. Everyone was looking at Xuanhuang. He was the #1 physician in the imperial court of the Unrivalled God Dynasty. He was also a cultivator on the ancient path of medicine. Princess. Cabinet chief. Emperor De's state isn't because he was poisoned or sick. I've also discussed this with my fellow colleagues for a long time. There's a huge chance that Xuanhuang spoke word by word, weighing each word carefully, afraid that he would say something wrong. After all, this matter was simply too great for him to speak without much thought. It involved Emperor De, the Unrivalled God Dynasty's stability, and the safety of its citizens. Thus, Xuanhuang didn't dare to speak carelessly. What chance?
The murderous aura on Princess Yulin's face turned heavy, making her look like a god of slaughter as she looked very ferocious. But in the blink of an eye, she suppressed her emotions with all her might.
It's because of a parasite.
Xuanhuang replied solemnly.
A parasite? What do you mean? Princess Yulin asked.
In the previous era, the Central Plains frequently changed dynasties. But the dynasties outside of the Central Plains and on its borders lasted for a long time.
The longest dynasty that I know was the ancient Dian dynasty.
Xuanhuang explained.
Ancient Dian dynasty? Princess Yulin frowned. She didn't recognize such a dynasty.
The other court officials also shook their heads. The ancient Dian dynasty is King Xian's dynasty. The son of the Millennium Sword God from the old era suddenly came out of the shadows and spoke up.
It is often said that King Xian was an immortal that had always ruled over the ancient Dian dynasty. My father once had the chance to go to the ancient Dian dynasty before back then.
The women there are different from the Central Plains and are very strange in their mannerisms and general etiquette.
In addition, they are masters of handling parasites.
Using the resources of the Unrivalled God Dynasty, the son of the Millennium Sword God from the old era had already recovered from his injuries.
Fortunately, he wasn't an ingrate.
Thus, to express his gratitude to Princess Yulin, he decided to become her subordinate. Princess Yulin displayed great trust in this swordsman who had once defeated her. On the off chance that he might have an idea as to what was happening to Emperor De, she brought him here for the meeting.
You're saying that my brother was secretly harmed by this ancient Dian dynasty? Princess Yulin asked with a cold look. The swordsman didn't speak. He looked at Xuanhuang. It's not that simple.
For them to be able to do this to Emperor De, they must have come into contact with him. Considering that, I can't imagine how powerful that person from the ancient Dian dynasty who managed to escape detection from so many experts of the Unrivalled God Dynasty.
Xuanhuang shook his head. The more days Emperor De spent in a coma, the more dangerous it would be for him. We must start our investigation as soon as possible. You're right, let's investigate. Investigate this matter thoroughly.
Investigate the entire Forbidden City, the entire imperial capital, left no stone unturned.
We must find the person who secretly harmed Emperor De. There aren't many people who could have come into contact with Emperor De before he fell into a coma. We can narrow the list of suspects down. Don't let any of them escape. Princess Yulin announced coldly. She unabashedly exposed a portion of the dark net before the court officials.
But this was also her form of deterrence against the dynasty's enemies.
Yes. In the blink of an eye, many people dispersed like ghosts in all directions. They disappeared as if they had never appeared before. Emperor Day had already handed over his control over the dark net to Princess Yulin.
Thus, she was able to seamlessly command them to do her bidding. Yes, we should investigate this matter in detail.
But for the time being, everyone should just stay in the Forbidden City.
Let us tell a white lie to the outside world and tell them that we will be taking a break to talk about the liberal arts examination papers of this batch of graduates from the many martial temples.
The cabinet chief solemnly gave his proposal.
As soon as he spoke, no one dared to oppose him. Every court official of the Xuanhuang God Dynasty respected this old man very much.
Princess Yulin spoke to Xuanhuang.
I will have to trouble this divine physician to take care of Emperor De day and night.
It's simply our duty to take care of patients, Princess. Emperor Day is an excellent emperor. We will do our best.
Xuanhuang agreed. The others agreed too. Just as they were about to return to the chamber where Emperor De was recuperating, a Buddhist light filled the air and a monk walked out from it.
He walked straight into Emperor De's palace. He didn't hide his presence at all. In an instant, the imperial guards, bodyguards, and many powerhouses stirred into action.
Wait!
He's one of us, Princess Yulin recognized the monk and shouted, stopping them. The person who came was none other than Monk Fusan, the one who previously stopped Taoist priest Daoi in his tracks.
He rushed over in a hurry, not even bothering to hide his presence.
It's over. It's over. I promised Senior that I would protect the emperor of the Xuanhuang God Dynasty. Why did he suddenly fall into a coma? Isn't he too unlucky?
Monk Fusan complained in his heart. What's worse was that it took him quite a while to learn about Emperor De's collapse. After all, he was an injured monk who was still trying to recover from his injuries. Hence, he didn't even try to hide his presence as he directly paid Emperor De a visit while panicking. He directly barged into the Forbidden City and arrived at Emperor De's palace.
And amidst the alarmed shouts of the Empress Dowager and the Empress, he grabbed Emperor De's wrist.
Just as he grabbed Emperor De's wrist, a black aura directly rushed out and transformed into a terrifying image that resembled an emperor.
A monk from the mortal realm dares to offend the might of King Xian? An angry roar reverberated throughout the surroundings.
Chapter 175, the Xuanhuang God Dynasty's guardian deity Black Smoke rushed out and transformed into the image of a majestic and terrifying emperor.
Rumble. An angry roar reverberated afterwards. The pressure coming from the emperor's phantom was so strong that everyone couldn't believe the scene in front of them. When Princess Yulin witnessed the turn of events, she was furious. As expected, there's a traitor in our ranks. That traitor harmed Brother Emperor.
Xuanhuang hurriedly pointed with his finger and shouted.
That is King Xian's parasite. We were right. Cordon the surroundings. No one is allowed to leave. Those who dare to do so will be killed without mercy.
The cabinet chief acted decisively. His aged body erupted with a powerful and imposing aura as he gave an order to control the situation.
In the chamber, the Empress Dowager, the Empress, the two princes, the palace maids, and the eunuchs all retreated and observed silently from the side. Only Monk Fusan and the unconscious Emperor De were left in the chamber. Furious, Monk Fusan took a deep breath and angrily rebuked, "This person is being protected by me, Lord Buddha. I don't care who the person behind you is. I have no business being afraid of those who only know how to hide in the dark. Hurry up and come out. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." Monk Fusan was truly furious. If anything happened to Emperor De, he would be betraying his promise to that senior. Even with his gentle personality, he directly addressed himself as Lord Buddha. A perfect display of his confidence against his enemy. Once Lord Buddha was angered, it was hard to say whether his opponent would live or die. What a bold bald donkey! You even dare to offend King Xian? You are simply too audacious. King Xian has taken a fancy to the body of this human emperor and wants to use his corpse to return to the world of the living from the netherworld. He wants to create another god dynasty in the mortal realm to restore the glory of the ancient Dian dynasty. Black smoke billowed as the condensed phantom continued its rant.
The place where you are standing right now is the territory of a god dynasty in the mortal realm.
Princess Yulin rebuked angrily.
She used her finger as a sword as sword energy surged all over her body. Her sword domain spread out, augmenting her already powerful strength.
She was already not far from the boundless realm. A god dynasty? Made by monkeys? The phantom looked at Princess Yulin and the others in disdain.
I, Princess Yulin, hereby swear that if anyone from the ancient Dian dynasty dares to come into being within the confines of the Yuhua god dynasties, they will be executed on sight.
No matter where the ancient Dian dynasty attempts to rebuild, the Yuhua god dynasty will travel thousands of miles to invade and destroy its remnants.
Today, the ancient Dian dynasty dared to play so dirty against Emperor Day.
Since that's the case, there will no longer be a place for you people in this world, Princess Yulin coldly announced.
As soon as her words came out, the court officials of the Yuhua god dynasty became excited and echoed in excitement.
The cabinet chief said decisively, "The princess is right.
There's no place for you people in this world anymore. There's no place for you people in this world anymore. There's no place for you people in this world anymore." The court officials, the Empress, and the Empress Dowager firmly supported Princess Yulin.
You dare? The phantom was both furious and astounded. It didn't expect Princess Yulin to be so domineering and decisive.
Since the ancient Dian dynasty wanted to re-establish itself and even wanted to borrow Emperor De's body to let King Xian return from his grave,
then Princess Yulin would directly destroy the ancient Dian dynasty in retaliation.
Emperor De's reforms and actions over the years had obviously been too shocking for everyone.
If not for his genius, why would the ancient Dian dynasty even take interest in his body as a possible vessel for their king's return to this mortal realm? Wasn't it all because Emperor De was not only wise and smart, but the aura of destiny on him was also simply too powerful? Back then, both the ancient Dian dynasty and King Xian were invincible existences that reigned over the world.
It's Emperor De's luck that his body would house the great and invincible soul of King Xian.
Yet, you lot actually dare to be so ungrateful? The phantom rebuked. Banti, there's no need for us to talk to this fanatic. No matter how powerful his King Xian was, his journey ended in the previous era.
You have already been abandoned by the previous era, yet you still want to struggle for a comeback in this brand new era.
You people are simply desperate and shameless, Princess Yulin coldly retorted.
She couldn't be bothered to listen to the phantom's words anymore.
Monk Fusan nodded. His expression turned serious and he took a step forward. Behind him, a Buddhist kingdom appeared. Amat Ba.
Monk Fusan pressed his palms together and exclaimed a Buddhist proclamation as Buddhist light wrapped both Emperor Di and the phantom inside. In the Buddhist kingdom, the images of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas immediately appeared to suppress the phantom. The phantom's expression changed. It hurriedly retreated into Emperor Di's body.
Just you wait. King Xian will definitely obtain this human emperor's body.
This time, King Xian will make a successful return to the mortal realm.
You won't be able to stop him. The phantom put on a brave front, not daring to fight Monk Fusan head-on.
He used Emperor De's body as a protective umbrella to protect himself and prevent the parasite, which was also the foundation of his existence, from being destroyed.
Monk Fusan didn't dare to hurt Emperor De's body. He looked at Princess Yulin helplessly. He's afraid that we might successfully destroy the parasite which is his raison d'etre inside Emperor De's body. He's now in hiding and I have no way of forcing him to come out.
This stalemate is dangerous for us.
This cannot continue.
Monk Fusan solemnly explained with a hint of helplessness on his old face. The parasite will eventually take complete control of Emperor Di and devour his sea of consciousness.
By then, Emperor Di will truly become King Xian's mortal body. Sai Huatua also stepped forward and warned. Everyone immediately looked at Princess Yulin. What should they do now? Banti, is there really no solution at all? Princess Yulin calmed down and asked Monk Fusan. Monk Fusan thought for a while.
I don't have a solution, but I know someone who definitely has a solution for this.
Princess Yulin's eyes narrowed. She knew who Monk Fusan was talking about. Big Granduncle Lin Jiufeng. Princess Yulin finally understood why Monk Fusan helped Emperor Day.
It turned out that Big Granduncle truly had a hand on this matter.
Do you know where he is? Princess Yulin asked. I don't know. Monk Fusan shook his head. Princess Yulin didn't know either.
She looked at the unconscious Emperor Di and the expectant gazes around her. All of a sudden, Princess Yulin found it hard to endure the pressure coming from their gazes. But in the end, she could not possibly run away from her responsibility.
Pass down the order. Everyone was rejuvenated as they stared at Princess Yulin. What order? Let the world know that Emperor Day is currently suffering from the effect of a parasite caused by the remnants of the ancient Dian dynasty. Tell the world that Emperor Day is critically ill and in a state of comatose. The world must also know that the ancient Dian dynasty is now the Yuhua God dynasty's mortal enemy.
Every remnant of the ancient Dian dynasty must be captured and immediately escorted to the imperial capital.
Pass down these orders, no more, no less. Princess Yulin declared.
When her words fell, everyone was dumbfounded.
Princess, isn't it a little risky to announce Emperor Di's situation?
The cabinet chief asked. Once the news of Emperor Di's plight comes out, those ambitious sects and people will definitely attempt to take advantage of the situation, a court official said solemnly.
Your order will cause turmoil in the Yuhua God dynasty. It will directly throw the world into an uproar.
The court officials objected.
They couldn't understand why Princess Yulin would give such an order. Only Monk Fusan seemed to be in deep thought.
He seemed to have realized why Princess Yulin was passing down such an order.
Yulin, what's your objective in announcing the news of your brother's current plight to the world? The Empress Dowager asked solemnly. The others also looked at Princess Yulin.
They all wanted to know what she was thinking.
Why was she trying to do such a thing?
Princess Yulin replied softly. I'm not planning on announcing Brother Emperor's plight to the world just because I want the world to know about his current situation.
I want that person to know. That person?
The Empress Dowager was dumbfounded.
Yes, that person.
He's the only person who can change the world, and he is also the guardian deity of our Yuhua God dynasty.
Princess Yulin added.
As usual, she placed Lin Jiufeng, who was both her teacher master and her big granduncle, in high regard. Chapter 176, Scram out. When the news of Emperor Di's illness was released, the world was thrown into an uproar.
The news spread like wildfire.
Many secret scouts in the imperial capital immediately spread this news and labeled it as extremely urgent. It was as if the news itself was the signal to winter's arrival.
A vast expanse of whiteness representing everyone's shock dyed the world.
Some of the major forces even found it hard to stand still.
To think that Emperor Day of the Yuhua God dynasty was actually critically ill. Attacked by a parasite, he fell into a coma.
The powerhouses in the imperial capital must have been unable to deal with the ordeal, so they had no choice but to announce the news to the world.
In an instant, rumors flew everywhere. Everyone started to talk about what exactly happened.
Some people even directly said that Emperor De was already dead. Next, his two princes would start competing for the throne. Some people also said that it might not necessarily be one of the two princes ascending the throne.
Princess Yulin might occupy the position of the throne and become the empress regnant of the dynasty.
While some people even said that Princess Yulin herself was the one who attached the so-called parasite to Emperor De.
They said that Princess Yulin had cooperated with the people from the ancient Dian dynasty.
Rumors were born rapidly as time trickled by.
Because of Emperor De's influence, half a day was all it took for the entire world to know about his plight. When the common people heard the news, they found it hard to believe. That's our emperor, the emperor of the Yuhua God dynasty.
So many people are under his banner with dozens, or maybe even hundreds of divine physicians on standby ready to take care of his body.
How could someone like that fall sick, not to mention fall into a coma? The common people voiced their doubts. How could a mere parasite handle the joint effort of Emperor De's divine physicians? But of course, considering where the news came from, many people started to believe that it was true. The news came from the Xuanhuang God Dynasty's Forbidden City. The imperial capital is currently on lockdown and under martial law.
The Forbidden City is also currently being searched non-stop. They are leaving no stones unturned.
This must be true. That's right. Emperor De ran out of luck this time. There are so many powerhouses born in this world every day thanks to the world's spiritual energy recovery. Even a powerful emperor like Emperor De would still find it difficult to constantly be on guard against assassinations and such. What a pity. Emperor De is a good emperor, to say the least.
He built those martial temples out of consideration for ordinary people like us. His reforms are also the best among those previous ones in history.
But it's a pity that he's about to die despite being so young.
The citizens at the bottom rung of society thoroughly supported Emperor De.
After all, it was only when Emperor De ascended to the throne did they finally feel the benefits of the reforms and good politics.
Now that Emperor De was critically ill, many people silently prayed to their various gods and wished for the former's recovery. Lin Jiufeng, who was heading to the north, passed by a city.
After entering the city, he heard people discussing the news from the Xuanhuang God Dynasty. Emperor De was critically ill. Lin Jiufeng immediately frowned. Emperor De was still fine when I left. Why is he suddenly ill? What if it's just a wild rumor? The white cat asked curiously. Lin Jiufeng shook his head. He wandered around the city. People were discussing this matter everywhere. City officials included. Their words made him unhappy. Because so many people were talking about this matter, it soon became obvious that it was 100% true. When even a small city so far away from the imperial capital knew about this matter, it meant that everyone in the Xuanhuang God Dynasty knew about it.
Lin Jiufeng stopped the carriage and casually grabbed a passerby.
"Do you like this carriage?" The passerby looked at Lin Jiufeng, dumbfounded. "I just asked you if you liked it." Lin Jiufeng repeated. The passerby looked at the exquisite carriage and the purebred black horse.
He stammered through his words.
I like it." "It's good that you like it. You can have it then."
Lin Jiufeng handed the horse carriage's reins to the passerby and turned around to leave.
The passerby was stunned. The bystanders were all dumbfounded too.
"WW8. I can't afford the maintenance for," the passerby shouted, looking aggrieved. But Lin Jiufeng had already disappeared.
Lin Jiufeng was in a hurry.
He headed straight for the imperial capital at breakneck speeds.
Nothing must happen to Emperor De.
He was the successor to both Emperor Yuan and Emperor Ming, the driving force behind the Xuanhuang God Dynasty's rise. Lin Jiufeng helped him in the dark, but the person who really pushed for the Xuanhuang God Dynasty to become stronger step by step was still Emperor De.
Emperor De is still in his prime, yet he was actually plotted against by some dog *T ancient Dian dynasty. But we cannot underestimate this ancient Dian dynasty, their origins are mysterious.
The white cat mumbled into Lin Jiufeng's ear.
No matter how mysterious and powerful they are, that was all in the previous era. In this brand new era, the Xuanhuang God Dynasty reigns supreme.
If they are dragons, they have to coil up for me. If they are tigers, they have to lie down for me. Lin Jiufeng stated coldly.
Upon hearing the news about the ancient Dian dynasty's attack against Emperor De, the citizens of the Xuanhuang God Dynasty were furious. The remnants of the ancient Dian dynasty who had just come into being found it hard to live within the Xuanhuang God Dynasty's territories. Lin Jiufeng had never even heard of the ancient Dian dynasty.
The books that Miss Hong gave him only recorded the sects and powerhouses of the Central Plains. There were very few records of those forces outside the Central Plains.
There was not a single mention of the ancient Dian dynasty at all.
But no matter how powerful the ancient Dian dynasty, they should have not harmed Emperor De. Lin Jiufeng used all of his might to rush toward the imperial capital of the Xuanhuang God Dynasty. Lin Jiufeng traversed thousands of miles in just 10 breaths.
Back then, he had to spend a day traveling to Jiangnan from the imperial capital.
But today, he only used half a day to return to the imperial capital from the borders of the northern regions.
Imperial capital, Forbidden City. A day had passed since the announcement of Emperor De's plight. The announcement in the morning spread throughout the world at noon. The entire world was thrown into an uproar. Time slowly passed and late afternoon eventually arrived. The Forbidden City remained brightly lit and on lockdown. It was strictly guarded with patrols investigating everywhere. This afternoon, Princess Yulin decided to stand in front of Emperor De's palace. She waited silently while looking into the distance. Xuanhuang and the others kept working to stabilize Emperor De's condition. Even if they couldn't save Emperor De, they had to slow down the progress of the parasite. But the results were minimal.
In the late afternoon, Xuanhuang walked out of Emperor De's palace with clear exhaustion on his face as he said respectfully, "Princess, we tried our best, but we still didn't manage to hinder the parasite's progress in Emperor De's body.
A large portion of his body has already been consumed by the parasite.
We are now sealing his acupoints with silver needles, but this is merely a stopgap." The Empress Dowager and the Empress turned pale when they heard his words.
Princess Yulin took a deep breath and said, "It's been hard on you all.
We have no other choice but to wait for a miracle."
Xuanhuang sighed. "A miracle will definitely happen," Princess Yulin said firmly.
She looked into the distance. The setting sun turned the clouds crimson, making them appear as if they were burning. It was as if a terrifying existence was about to appear from the clouds. The cabinet chief sat at the side and asked weakly,
"Princess, when will the guardian deity of our Unrivalled God Dynasty arrive?"
After persevering and waiting for an entire day and night, the cabinet chief couldn't persist anymore. His old body was starting to crumble from the stress and anxiety. Princess Yulin pursed her lips.
She couldn't answer his question. But suddenly, Princess Yulin's eyes lit up.
She saw a figure walking out from the crimson clouds.
A resplendent light shrouded Lin Jiufeng, obscuring his appearance.
In a flash, Lin Jiufeng arrived in front of Emperor De's palace.
He walked past everyone. Cabinet ministers, cabinet chief. Princess Yulin, Empress, Empress Dowager. Royal consecrators, a group of powerhouses. Maids, eunuchs.
Everyone watched with their eyes wide open, but they couldn't quite look at Lin Jiufeng's appearance. Carrying with him the light of hope, Lin Jiufeng distorted the surrounding space so that no one could see his true appearance. Lin Jiufeng walked to Emperor De's bedside. His expression was cold as he looked into Emperor De's body. A green worm that was as small as a human hair slowly crawled about in Emperor De's head.
"Scram out!"
Lin Jiufeng shouted coldly and pointed with his finger.
Boom!
Chapter 177, dying 10,000 times. Lin Jiufeng's move was powerful enough to collapse the void. But upon tapping Emperor De's glabella, his power condensed in a single point that seeped into Emperor De's sea of consciousness.
It transformed into an energy that surveyed Emperor De's meridian in search of the parasite.
Lin Jiufeng made sure that Emperor De wasn't harmed as he was doing all these.
Boom!
But he was also very decisive.
The condensed energy transformed into a cage that swiftly enveloped the parasite. He then pulled hard. The parasite was directly pulled out.
It didn't matter how powerful nor how infinitely small it was.
In front of Lin Jiufeng, there was nowhere to hide. Plap!
The parasite was captured by Lin Jiufeng and he directly smashed it onto the ground. In an instant, black smoke filled the room as a furious roar sounded.
"Who is it?" "To destroy the ancient Dian dynasty's plan. You deserve to die." The phantom hidden in the parasite appeared once again.
Lin Jiufeng watched coldly.
The phantom was simply the amalgamation of a powerful existence's willpower hidden inside the parasite. It wasn't an independent personality.
In short, it didn't have a mind of its own and was being controlled.
The parasite itself was quite powerful.
After being harshly pulled out by Lin Jiufeng, it wasn't injured at all. It turned violent and vicious. Its eyes turned bloodthirsty as it bared its fangs and brandished its claws.
Ancient Dian dynasty? King Xian? What are those? Lin Jiufeng asked disdainfully. You dare humiliate King Xian?
The phantom was enraged.
It stared at the hazy image of Lin Jiufeng. Its bloodthirsty nature didn't recede at all. It completely looked like it wanted to devour Lin Jiufeng in his entirety. King Xian is someone who is standing at the border of becoming an immortal. You actually dared to humiliate him?
You are truly bold, the phantom said angrily.
Since your King Xian is so powerful, why didn't he make a move on his own?
To think that he would hide behind the curtains and send a small fry to occupy Emperor De's body. Lin Jiufeng sneered and acted doubtful. King Xian needs a vessel for his soul before he can come into being. It's this human emperor's honor to give up his body for King Xian.
The phantom remarked proudly. Honor your mother. Lin Jiufeng cursed.
His eyes turned cold as he directly slapped down.
Bang!
The phantom was instantly shattered.
Lin Jiufeng's powerful strength wasn't something that it could match at all. The phantom disappeared, but the parasite remained.
Lin Jiufeng captured the parasite and stared at it coldly.
You can't kill me. I'm just an avatar made from willpower.
King Xian is the true mastermind behind all of this. When King Xian comes into being, it will be the time of your deaths.
The phantom appeared once again. It was still insufferably arrogant.
But Lin Jiufeng noticed that the phantom seemed to have grown weaker.
This slight reduction in strength made Lin Jiufeng sneer. Are you sure that I can't kill you? Lin Jiufeng asked. Of course. Do you even know what you are holding? The phantom looked at Lin Jiufeng in disdain. Lin Jiufeng remained silent.
The parasite in your hand is a puppet worm personally refined by King Xian. Immortal materials were used to refine it.
Without king power, that parasite cannot be destroyed. The phantom laughed proudly.
King power, this was a realm beyond the boundless realm.
In the current world, there shouldn't be anyone with such a cultivation base. The recovery of the world's spiritual energy wasn't fast enough to support such a terrifying existence just yet. The peak of today's cultivation world was the boundless realm.
That was why the phantom laughed. It felt proud knowing that it couldn't die. Lin Jiufeng calmly looked at the dark green parasite worm and said, I may not be able to kill this parasite, but I can annihilate you easily.
Really? The phantom laughed out loud. Both me and the parasite you are holding right now are technically the same entity. If you can't kill that parasite, then you also won't be able to kill me. Are you sure you aren't daydreaming?
The phantom mocked Lin Jiufeng. Outside the chamber, Princess Yulin and the others watched in anticipation. Lin Jiufeng could be said to be the hope of the Unrivalled God Dynasty, the only person who could save Emperor De.
You don't believe me? Lin Jiufeng sneered. Come and kill me then. I want to see just how you will kill me.
The phantom remained arrogant. He was looking down on Lin Jiufeng's boundless realm cultivation base.
War God Catalog.
A divine-grade cultivation technique that Lin Jiufeng received from signing and stirred into action.
This was the very first time that he was using it.
It was so powerful that it stunned and dazzled everyone who saw its first appearance in the world.
Rumble. Lin Jiufeng opened his palm.
Sharp light burst out from his 5 fingers. It enveloped everything with its terrifying might.
It enveloped the parasite and the phantom.
You are indeed very difficult to kill. You live in the body of the puppet worm.
If the puppet worm isn't destroyed, you basically won't be able to die.
You can revive indefinitely, Lin Jiufeng said coldly.
But haven't you noticed how your body shrinks every time you die? Lin Jiufeng asked. The phantom's mind jolted. It trembled.
Just as it was about to speak, the sharp energy in Lin Jiufeng's hand slashed over.
Boom!
The phantom was killed. It happened in an instant, there was no room for resistance.
In front of the War God Catalog, the phantom couldn't even withstand a single blow.
But in the very next moment, the phantom recovered from its injuries.
I can recover from any injuries for as long as I want.
What you said was nonsense.
The phantom shouted angrily. It didn't believe Lin Jiufeng's words at all. Bang! Lin Jiufeng was too lazy to say any more words to the phantom. The war god catalog continued to display its might and it killed the phantom once more. Even after its third revival, the phantom remained stubborn. Even if you kill me thousands of times, I can still recover. If the puppet worm doesn't die, I won't die. You can trap me for a while, but you can't control me forever. Boom! Lin Jiufeng watched coldly. Without saying a word, he killed the phantom once again. The fourth time. The fifth time. The sixth time. Every successive slash was very decisive, no movement was wasted at all. The phantom recovered almost immediately every time it died. But after it died a more few times, it didn't leave the parasite's body anymore and just hid inside. Unfortunately for the phantom, although Lin Jiufeng couldn't kill the parasite itself, he could still invade its body with his true qi and force the phantom out. He then continued to kill the phantom. Lin Jiufeng was truly angry this time. Outside the palace, Princess Yulin and the others silently observed the many deaths and resurrections of the phantom. The phantom continuously died so fast that it couldn't react at all. Even Princess Yulin wasn't able to react. None of the onlookers could react. When the son of the Millennium Sword God of the old era saw the scene, he exclaimed, "He's simply too powerful. It seems that he didn't use his full strength when he defeated me back then." The son of the Millennium Sword God of the old era knew about Lin Jiufeng. After all, he fought against Lin Jiufeng and was severely injured by the latter. Initially, he was extremely unwilling and wanted to compete with Lin Jiufeng once again. But now, his intent to battle Lin Jiufeng has disappeared. Because he saw Lin Jiufeng killing the phantom 10,000 times in just 2 hours. A total of 10,000 times. The phantom was stubborn at the beginning and was full of confidence. But now, it started to beg for mercy. Panic filled the phantom's heart as it started to be afraid of Lin Jiufeng. It was because after dying 10,000 times in Lin Jiufeng's hands, it noticed that half of its body had disappeared. If this continued, the phantom understood that it would definitely suffer a true death. "I surrender. Please, mercy. Spare me." The phantom begged loudly. "It's too late. I must kill you today. Didn't you say that you cannot be killed?" Lin Jiufeng coldly snorted in derision. Chapter 178. In front of the cold palace after dying 10,000 times, the phantom's body shrank by half. It knew that if this continued, it would definitely die. Although it was only a part of someone's willpower, it still didn't want to die. After living in the puppet worm for thousands of years, it gained its own independent thoughts and its own personality. It understood that if its progress continued, it would become an entity comparable to that of a human being. But today, Lin Jiufeng destroyed its thousands of years' worth of progress in just 2 hours. This was simply unacceptable to the phantom. It begged for mercy and cried out pitifully. "Spare me. I failed to see your might. I'm a frog in a well. Just treat me as if I'm a fart. An adult does not blame a child for its mistakes. Please. I don't want to die." The phantom's pleading didn't make Lin Jiufeng waver. Lin Jiufeng decisively attacked and destroyed the phantom. Death after death, and then revival after revival, made the phantom tremble in fear. With every death, it could feel that it wasn't too far away from true death. It simply wasn't willing to accept such an outcome. Yes, it wanted to struggle and continue to live. However, the phantom didn't expect that there was actually a terrifying existence like Lin Jiufeng in this brand new world. Lin Jiufeng hadn't reached king power yet, but the latter could still kill it so easily. Holding it with one hand and then killing it endlessly with the other. Lin Jiufeng's level of strength in this brand new world was simply unreasonably powerful. "I can tell you everything about King Xian's plan. Please just spare my life." After the phantom was killed once again, it begged for mercy and directly chose to betray King Xian. Lin Jiufeng stopped. This time, he didn't kill the phantom outright. The higher-ups of the Xuanhuang God Dynasty were excited as they watched in anticipation. "How did you and the puppet worm manage to get close to Emperor Day?" Lin Jiufeng asked coldly. It's Emperor De's personal eunuch. We first used the puppet worm to control him. Then, he brought the puppet worm in and approached Emperor De. The phantom decisively sold out the mole within the imperial court. Princess Yulin's eyes turned cold as she looked at the trembling old eunuch. I have suspected you, but I didn't expect that it would really be you. You served Emperor De for decades. He trusted you so much, but how could you be the one to stab him in the back? Princess Yulin gnashed her teeth in hatred. Princess, I was under control. I had no other choice. The old eunuch knelt and begged for mercy while weeping. Pooh. But Princess Yulin didn't listen to his explanation. She immediately killed him with a sword move as she spat coldly. Your explanation does not matter, you still have to die today. Lin Jiufeng saw what happened and he soon retracted his gaze. He looked at the phantom and asked, how many people from the ancient Dian dynasty have already come into being? What's King Xian's plan? Where is he? Everyone curiously stared at the phantom. In order to survive, the phantom became decisive. Only a few hundred members of the ancient Dian dynasty have come into being so far. They are all small fries that cannot be considered powerful even in the previous era. As for King Xian, he is still in his own tomb. It's impossible for him to revive on his own. Back then, while the world's spiritual energy was already in decline, he died in the hands of an immortal. But he had long prepared everything before his death. King Xian brought all of the ancient Dian dynasty's powerhouses into his own tomb. He ordered them to accompany him to sleep so that they could protect his tomb. Of course, he also left many puppet worms and many contingency plans for his resurrection. I'm one of his contingency plans. I am a portion of King Xian's willpower, or will. He placed me into a puppet worm to find the human emperor with the greatest accumulated destiny energy in this brand new era. My task was to use the puppet worm and control that emperor for King Xian. Then afterwards, I have to plant King Xian's source energy into the human emperor's body so that King Xian could use the latter as his vessel for his rebirth. I did all of these in secret. I used a few of my own puppet worms to control several people with various security clearances. The last of them was that old eunuch. Just like me, he was afraid of death, so he took the initiative to poison Emperor De with one of my puppet worms by letting Emperor De drink tea laced with it. The phantom was afraid of death. He explained everything in detail. Hearing this, Princess Yulin was furious. She directly slashed out and cut the dead old eunuch's body into pieces. The defenses of the palace have to be strengthened, the cabinet chief commented weakly. Lin Jiufeng remained calm. He continued to ask, where is King Xian's tomb? It's somewhere in the Northwest Territory. I don't know its exact location, because it's top secret. In addition, the puppet worms and us, his contingency plans did not come into being close to his tomb, the phantom replied. Northwest Territory. The white cat thought to herself. If not for this matter, they would have gone through the northern regions and arrived at the Northwest Territory by now. You planted King Xian's source energy in Emperor De's body? Lin Jiufeng asked. No, I didn't have enough time to do it. Those divine physicians sealed his meridians. I couldn't plant it at all. Thus, I could only choose to control Emperor De first. But before I could do that, you arrived and stopped me, the phantom replied rather sincerely. When the doctors heard this, they heaved sighs of relief and smiled. Their hard work hadn't been in vain. Lord, I'm really telling you the truth. I've told you everything. I don't dare to hide anything at all. I only ask that you spare my life. The phantom begged for mercy. If he had a physical body, he would have already kneeled in front of Lin Jiufeng. Lin Jiufeng watched coldly. Then, he reached out and tossed the puppet worm to Princess Yulin. When Emperor De wakes up, let him see how much trouble this small puppet worm has caused to the entire Xuanhuang God Dynasty. Leave that thing in the palace and be on guard at all times. Don't let anything similar to this happen again. Lin Jiufeng advised. Princess Yulin caught the puppet worm and said respectfully, I understand, teacher master. Under the gazes of everyone, Princess Yulin didn't reveal that she was Lin Jiufeng's grandniece. Instead, she regarded herself as his disciple. All of her sword techniques were imparted to her by Lin Jiufeng. It wasn't a problem for her to address herself as his disciple. Lin Jiufeng didn't refute her words. He got up and left. The space around him distorted. No one could see his face clearly. They could only see the resplendent light around him disappear into the night. Once Lin Jiufeng left, everyone looked at Emperor De. Emperor De, who had been in a coma for a few days, slowly woke up. Just now, there was a ball of holy light shining upon me. I felt very comfortable. I don't feel tired at all even though I was so deep in my sleep. Emperor De said weakly. Princess Yulin walked in and said, "My teacher master came." Emperor De instantly understood that his big granduncle returned to save him. He couldn't help but sweat. In the end, his big granduncle still had to save him. Just like in the past, whenever the Unrivalled God Dynasty encountered a problem that it couldn't solve on its own, it was always Lin Jiufeng who helped them in the end. Rest well. Princess Yulin patted Emperor De's palm. Emperor De nodded and said, "I want you to command the imperial court until next month. Let me take a good rest." Ever since his ascension to the throne decades ago, Emperor De never truly rested. But now that his life force was greatly damaged, he wanted to rest for an entire month. After Lin Jiufeng lent his hand to Emperor De, he didn't immediately leave the imperial capital. He returned to the cold palace where he lived for the past 80 years. The dilapidated cold palace was greatly in contrast to the bustling imperial capital. Wild grass was already growing at the entrance. Compared to when Lin Jiufeng came in back then, the cold palace had become even older. Some of the buildings even looked like they were about to collapse. But a lamp flickered tenaciously in front of the cold palace. Its light gave warmth to the palace. The light of the homes. Chapter 179, Ultimate in Treasured Skill. The light of the homes flickered, but it didn't look very powerful. Inside the lamp was a weak flame hanging in front of the cold palace, but despite being continuously battered by the elements, it never went out. What this lamp used as fuel wasn't oil, but the smoke and fire from the homes of the people living in this world. The fire from inside the lamp suppressed the cold palace and the land of extreme negative energy. Its influence caused people to subconsciously leave the place when they got close. Thanks to the light of the homes, no one was curious about such a dilapidated courtyard in the huge imperial capital. Stepping in front of the cold palace once again, the white cat became excited. It ran straight into the courtyard wall. "Compared to traveling the world with you, I still prefer the quiet life here," the white cat said. "I also prefer our quiet life here." Lin Jiufeng nodded. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't sign in at the land of extreme negative energy anymore, Lin Jiufeng would have stayed in the cold palace forever. As long as he could become stronger, living in the cold palace wasn't a problem for Lin Jiufeng. It's sad, but everything here has already become so dilapidated. The white cat ran into the courtyard where Lin Jiufeng used to live. She then saw the frost jade bed. Unfortunately, even the frost jade bed couldn't escape the ruthless passing of time. It had become nothing but a slab of rock. The frost jade aura inside had already vanished. The once clean courtyard was now overgrown with weeds. The weeds grew wildly and rampant. Wherever one's eyes laid, one would see decay. Lin Jiufeng slowly walked in and stood in front of the courtyard. With his hands behind his back, he muttered, "A house still needs people to live in it. Only when there are people living in a house will it not decline. Otherwise, even the most exquisite houses will fall into ruins without the maintenance of the living." Meow. The white cat called out regretfully. Lin Jiufeng looked in the direction of the 2 cherry trees that he had planted himself. Weeds were everywhere. The cherry trees had long died of old age. Its roots had become rotten and inundated with weeds. The 2 cherry trees that represented both Emperor Yuan and Emperor Ming were gone. Lin Jiufeng couldn't help but sigh. The cold palace was still the cold palace, but the things inside of it had changed. He continued to stroll around the deserted cold palace. The garden that Lin Jiufeng had cleaned up previously was now a messy grassland.
The aisle that Lin Jiufeng had cleaned up previously was now filled with vines. Back then, there were no snakes, insects, rats, or ants in the area.
But now, they were everywhere.
The white cat walked on the wall and jumped into Lin Jiufeng's arms.
She was no longer interested in the cold palace.
Let's go and take a look at the land of extreme negative energy. Lin Jiufeng turned around and went down, entering the land of extreme negative energy through the narrow passageway. In the land of extreme negative energy, tombs could be seen everywhere. Those who were killed in action in this place back in the previous era were still here. And at the moment Lin Jiufeng stepped into the land of extreme negative energy, a line of words appeared before his eyes. You have re-entered the land of extreme negative energy.
Do you wish to sign in?
Lin Jiufeng raised his brows.
This is possible too?
He had once entered the land of extreme negative energy after going out.
He didn't receive the sign-in opportunity back then.
But today was different.
Sign in.
Lin Jiufeng decisively signed in.
He knew that he had nothing to lose by signing in.
In addition, he was also curious. He had become stronger since his return. He wondered just what kind of reward would he receive after signing in this time.
Sign in successful.
Received ultimate treasured skill.
Ultimate treasured skill?
Lin Jiufeng was confused.
Boom!
In the very next moment, a vast stream of information rushed into Lin Jiufeng's mind.
He immediately understood everything about the ultimate treasured skill.
The ultimate treasured skill was a powerful technique from hell. Unlike cultivation techniques, treasured skills were stronger and more suitable for the comprehension and usage of cultivators at the boundless realm and above. At the start of cultivation, cultivators practiced mental techniques. After condensing a golden core, one could then practice cultivation techniques. After cultivation techniques were treasured skills. Lin Jiufeng's treasured skill belonged to hell. Techniques like these might not be called treasured skills in the mortal realm, but all of them possessed potential and strength greater than cultivation techniques.
This is my first treasured skill. Lin Jiufeng remarked in joy.
After receiving the ultimate treasured skill, his strength could then rise to yet again another level.
Tonight, Lin Jiufeng didn't go anywhere.
He sat cross-legged at the entrance of the land of extreme negative energy and stayed for the night. He mastered the ultimate treasured skill overnight, allowing his strength to rise.
There were 32 steps in the boundless realm.
Lin Jiufeng was 7 steps into the realm last night, but after mastering the ultimate treasured skill, he climbed hard and arrived at the 15th step overnight. This progress alone was enough to prove how precious treasured skills were.
This ultimate treasured skill isn't so simple.
All of my cultivation techniques can be integrated with the ultimate treasured skill to form a brand new treasured skill.
This is the true power of the ultimate treasured skill.
Lin Jiufeng was both shocked and surprised when he discovered the ultimate treasured skill's true capabilities.
Even in hell, the ultimate treasured skill was an extremely rare treasured skill.
It could change the attributes of other cultivation techniques and increase their might at the same time.
It was considered to be an overpowered technique.
I didn't expect to receive such a huge surprise upon coming to the land of extreme negative energy again. Lin Jiufeng stood up and sighed.
What surprise? The white cat looked at Lin Jiufeng in confusion.
Nothing has changed around here, isn't that a surprise? Lin Jiufeng responded with a smile.
What surprise?
The white cat mumbled, confused. Lin Jiufeng ignored her and walked into the land of extreme negative energy. The vast land of extreme negative energy was buried deep underground and surrounded with complete darkness. But for Lin Jiufeng, who once lived here for decades, traversing the area wasn't a problem at all.
Lin Jiufeng walked around inside, but he didn't find anything. He received no other second chance to sign in.
Thus, he shook his head regretfully.
Is my journey in the land of extreme negative energy this time going to just end like this? Lin Jiufeng frowned. Lin Jiufeng felt that something was amiss. But he couldn't find it.
After strolling around, Lin Jiufeng eventually went out. But when he walked to the tomb of the Millennium Sword God of the old era, he remembered that his son was still looking for the former's corpse. Therefore, Lin Jiufeng dug out the corpse of the Millennium Sword God of the old era and brought it out to give to his son. After all, he was now Princess Yulin's subordinate. Lin Jiufeng had to give him some benefits. When Lin Jiufeng left the land of extreme negative energy and arrived in front of the cold palace, he saw a figure standing in the distance. Emperor Dai. Yesterday, he was still very weak and fragile. Today, he looked much better. Although his face was still pale, he seemed to be in good spirits. He came alone to the cold palace on his own. I knew that big granduncle would be here, so I came here directly. When Emperor Dai saw Lin Jiufeng, he directly knelt, kowtowed. He expressed his gratitude to Lin Jiufeng before he explained why he was in the cold palace. Lin Jiufeng waved his sleeve and a breeze swept through a pavilion, cleaning it up. Come here and sit down. You're the emperor of this dynasty, why are you kneeling? What you are doing is inappropriate. Lin Jiufeng chided. He seemed somewhat unhappy. It's normal for juniors to kneel and worship their elders, Emperor Dai smiled and said, in the eyes of outsiders, I'm the high and mighty Emperor Dai, but in front of big granduncle, I'm just a useless junior. When something happens, big granduncle still has to help me resolve it. If not for big granduncle, I would have died long ago. Lin Jiufeng looked at Emperor Dai and asked, why have you come to look for me today? Big granduncle, do you still remember Demon King Jiao from decades ago? Emperor Dai asked. Lin Jiufeng raised his brows. Demon King Jiao? How could he not remember? Back then, it was because of the heaven-raising bull that Lin Jiufeng didn't kill Demon King Jiao. The heaven-raising bull's display of brotherhood made Lin Jiufeng spare Demon King Jiao's life. But as punishment, he decided to seal and suppress the latter. Why? Is there a problem with Demon King Jiao? Lin Jiufeng asked. Chapter 180, Save Me. Back then, Lin Jiufeng suppressed Demon King Jiao beneath the rain by the Wei River. The 7 great sages of the monster and demon race were very arrogant back then. Other than demon sage Pingtian, the other 6 were all planning to make a move against the Unrivalled God Dynasty. But after Lin Jiufeng suppressed Demon King Jiao, they no longer dared to do anything. They hid in the dark and decided to silently recover their strength while waiting for an opportunity for revenge. Over the past few decades, the Unrivalled God Dynasty's rapid development never faltered. The 7 great sages of the monster and demon race didn't dare to cause any trouble at all. But after hearing Emperor Dai's words, Lin Jiufeng couldn't help but doubt. When the news that I was critically ill went out, the powerhouses of this world began to make their moves. The 7 great sages naturally didn't want to be left out. They wanted to take advantage of the situation and save Demon King Jiao. Emperor Dai explained. This was the news sent by a scout from the dynasty's dark net. Emperor Dai discussed the news with Princess Yulin. In the end, Emperor Dai personally came to ask for Lin Jiufeng's help. The remaining 6 of the 7 great sages are going to rescue Demon King Jiao? Lin Jiufeng raised his brows. He was a little surprised. Back then, he gave Demon King Jiao a promise. As long as he broke the array formation with his own power, he would naturally be able to come out. But Lin Jiufeng wanted Demon King Jiao to rely on his own capabilities, not to gather his brothers to break the array formation. Yes. Our investigation confirmed that the Great Sage of the Chaotic Heavens, the Great Sage of the Moving Mountain, the Great Sage of the Blowing Wind, the Great Sage of the White Clothed, and the Great Sage of the Dreaming have all made their appearances by the Wei River. They have joined forces with the Great Sage of the Heaven Leveling, the Heaven Raising Bull, to break the seal and save the Great Sage of the Ocean Cover, Demon King Jiao. Emperor Dai reported. Is that it? Lin Jiufeng asked calmly. Emperor Dai looked at Lin Jiufeng quizzically. What did Lin Jiufeng mean by is that it? It's understandable for them to save Demon King Jiao. There are many powerhouses in the world today, and I've suppressed that Demon King Jiao for decades. I can understand his feelings of wanting to be free. Lin Jiufeng explained. If they are only here to save people, then there's no need to worry about them. Let them save Demon King Jiao. What other matters are there? Lin Jiufeng asked. If they are only there to save their brother, then there is no need to worry about them.
Let them save Demon King Jiao. What else? Lin Jiufeng asked. Emperor De nodded in understanding. He cleared his throat and reported. We haven't discovered any abnormal movements from them yet.
It's just that the Wei River is only 10,000 miles away from the imperial capital.
To these demon powerhouses, 10,000 miles isn't that far.
They are still a huge threat to the imperial capital.
It's fine. Don't you still have the war machine and even a group of subordinates under your command to protect the imperial capital? Monk Fusan is also here.
There's no need to worry about those so-called 7 great sages, Lin Jiufeng said calmly.
Big Granduncle.
I'm not worried about those 7 great sages, I'm worried about the other powerhouses that are bound to take advantage of the 7 great sages' threat to take action against our dynasty. I'm most worried about those powerhouses hiding in the dark. Emperor De shared his worries with Lin Jiufeng.
With me around, this world will not fall into chaos.
Lin Jiufeng looked placidly at Emperor De.
His figure exuded boundless confidence.
With Big Granduncle's words, there's no need for me to worry anymore.
Emperor De was overjoyed.
Lin Jiufeng waved his hand in dismissal.
Your body is still very weak.
Your life force has been greatly damaged and you have to recuperate well.
Don't die young like your father. That will be a huge loss for the Xuanhuang God Dynasty. With Granduncle around, the Xuanhuang God Dynasty won't fall into chaos. What happens to me isn't important as long as Big Granduncle is around. Emperor De said.
Lin Jiufeng shook his head and replied, don't even think like that.
To the Xuanhuang God Dynasty, I'm just a passerby. I'm a
cultivator who wants to pursue the summit of the cultivation world. If there's a day where I have to enter seclusion for hundreds of years, the Xuanhuang God Dynasty will still have to protect itself against its enemies. Protecting the dynasty is the responsibility of the emperor, civil, and military officials. I've helped you stabilize the Xuanhuang God Dynasty on account of your grandpa and father emperor.
You have to work hard on your own too. Don't take my help for granted.
Lin Jiufeng pointed out a fatal flaw in Emperor De's mindset.
Emperor De's expression turned serious. Actually, I've been working hard on what you just said. The martial temple is the place where I will nurture the future of the Xuanhuang God Dynasty. Emperor De's expression turned serious. I've been working hard all this time, Big Granduncle. The martial temples I've built shall be the foundation of the Xuanhuang God Dynasty and its greatest aid to its future survival. You've done well. Lin Jiufeng nodded. All right, you should go back now and rest. Goodbye, Big Granduncle. Emperor De got up and said goodbye. He left obediently.
In the huge cold palace, Lin Jiufeng was left alone.
With a cat. Meow, are you really going to let that Demon King Jiao go? The white cat asked and jumped onto the table. Of course. Haven't you realized that the world's spiritual energy recovery rate has slowed down yet again over the years? Lin Jiufeng asked. The white cat shook its head in confusion. I don't think so. I'm already at the Grotto Heaven realm and I even have my own domain now. The world's spiritual energy recovery rate has surely reached its peak, right?
No, the recovery rate has become slower compared to 30 years ago when I was still in the cold palace.
Lin Jiufeng shook his head.
Back then, when the world's spiritual energy recovery rate increased, the upper limit of cultivation also increased to the martial sage realm. Then to the human god realm, Grotto Heaven realm, and the supremacy realm. In just a few decades, the upper limit broke through 3 realms. But in the 30 years that he spent in seclusion and signing in silently in the land of extreme negative energy, the upper limit only increased by 1 realm. The boundless realm. This was what Lin Jiufeng meant when he said that the world's spiritual recovery rate has slowed down. Even Lin Jiufeng himself had yet to make a breakthrough to the peak of the boundless realm. It was easy to understand that the world's spiritual energy recovery rate has indeed slowed down. So that is why you want to let that Demon King Jiao go? The white cat paced back and forth on the table. Her figure looked elegant, her fur was snow white, and her eyes were as brilliant as the starry sky. Demon King Jiao has always wanted to reintroduce the true strength of the monster race to the world.
I think I should let him give it a try.
As long as he doesn't create trouble for the Unrivalled God Dynasty, I can turn a blind eye to his actions and let him leave.
Lin Jiufeng nodded.
Thousands of miles away from the imperial capital, there was a healthy and wide river.
Wei River.
In the past, Wei River wasn't that famous. Both the Yangtze River and the Yellow River were much more famous than it. But decades ago, a ferocious flood dragon that could control the clouds and rain was suppressed beneath the Wei River. The sight of the flood dragon itself was magnificent enough, and it was bound to attract tourists that bolstered the Wei River's reputation. Those who knew the story behind the flood dragon in Wei River knew that the Unrivalled God Dynasty was the one who did all of these to the flood dragon.
Hence, they didn't dare to approach. But even those that didn't know the story behind the flood dragon's suppression also didn't dare to approach. Because in the Wei River, there was an extremely powerful bull demon that easily trampled a supremacy to death. Moreover, the supremacy it defeated was a supremacy with a domain. This made everyone stay away from the Wei River. Whenever merchant ships passed by occasionally, the passengers would always cower in fear. It was because they could see that in the vast Wei River, a green heaven-raising bull would occasionally appear on the surface of the water to absorb huge amounts of spiritual energy from the world. Fortunately, as long as the merchant ships didn't deliberately cause trouble, the bull demon didn't bother them.
But the Wei River has become turbulent recently. With the appearance of Demon King Jiao, Demon King Dapeng, Demon King Gui, Demon King Yuan, Bai Zilong, Yun Shanhai, and Demon King Pingtian,
the 7 great sages of the monster and demon race were finally reunited.
But in contrast to the freedom that the other 6 enjoyed, the great sage of the ocean cover, Demon King Jiao, couldn't move at all.
Hurry up and pull these swords out so I can be free. Demon King Jiao barked impatiently.